What's going on, guys? Welcome back to SwampCast, man. It's Logan, it's EJ. How we feeling, EJ? How we doing, man?
We're feeling good. Halloween week.
Yeah.
Florida, Georgia week.
Woo.
Man,
it feels good. And also, the Gators didn't lose this weekend, so that's always nice. Having a bye week, you're kind of neutral, which is always nice. Yeah, man, I hate the Georgia Bulldogs. I do a lot of my work up in Atlanta, Georgia, as and a lot of other people, and man, I'm surrounded by people barking at me, and it's been like that for years. So I'm ready to because last win was 2020, COVID year, crazy game, the wheel routes that we had with Dan Mullen and Trask, and unbelievable game, man. Just felt good to get a win. And before that, when was the last time we beat Georgia? Before that, it's been a long time.
Oh man, so we beat them in 2020.
Yeah.
And I don't think we beat them since 2016.
Jesus.
Since before that.
Kirby's first year. Yeah, that's crazy, man. No, it's been absolute dominance ever since. It's been rough out here, man. But yeah, it's Georgia week, man. We're going to get into, of course, the Georgia game, the offensive, defensive side of things. What should we expect from this Georgia team? And, of course, the keys to beat the Georgia Bulldogs, which, honestly, in a year of college football, bro, with how crazy it is, anything can happen. You know what I'm saying? And this past weekend showed it again. I mean, Vandy almost pulling off. It's not even an upset at this point. It's just Vandy's just a good team, bro. They're scary. Yeah. So you never know, man, what's gonna happen. And even though the Gators feel like they can never pull off an upset, it's always the same old with them. In the year of 2024, man, anything can happen here. So we will see what happens with that. But and then we're going to, of course, talk about the games that happened yesterday on Saturday, and then preview some really interesting games. The slate looks kind of boring on first glance, but there's some sneaky games. This year, there's been like two or 3 weeks this season already where we've gone, hey, this is a kind of a boring week, and then it's just upset, galore. So we'll see what happens here. I'm really excited to see. But anyway. We're going to be playing the Georgia Bulldogs, man. This team only has one loss, been dominant all year. Obviously, one loss coming to Bama, which honestly they should have won that game. You know what I mean? They just got super behind in the first half. Nothing was working for them, some turnovers. Bama was just, Jalen Milroe just went off. Like, Kirby could not contain him. He was running all over the field. He was throwing bombs. Of course, you have Ryan Williams in his legacy game with like 200 reception yards. Just going berserk in that game. But Georgia should have won that football game, and every single game other than that they've played pretty well in. Really good win against let me pull up their schedule real quick. Really good win against Texas, as we know. The only game that I think was really interesting from them, well, there's been a couple. There's two. You have Kentucky, and then you have Mississippi State. So, because they destroyed Clemson, which, by the way, looking back on that, it's unbelievable. Clemson's a great football team. They're literally number 9 in the country. Like they're a good football team, and the fact that they beat them like that, 34-3 opening weekend, and then like I said, they've had a few run-ins here. They beat Auburn well, they beat Texas well, but Kentucky and Mississippi State, man, Kentucky they won by 1 point. At Kroger Field, I believe it was at Kroger Field, and then they they win by 10 against Mississippi State, which was really interesting. So, out of those two games, EJ, what jumped out at you? How do you think that they took strides and got better from those games like good football teams do? What do you think about this Georgia team overall and what they present?
Yeah, Georgia, they're the class of college football. And they have been since pretty much Kirby Smart's second year at the program. When you look at Georgia, or at least when I look at Georgia, and I think Kirby Smart, he plans out the whole season, and he knows what are the big key games. And so you'll always find the game right before a big game is always going to be relatively close. I don't know if it's when it was Kentucky week, for example, they had just finished playing Tennessee Tech. The next game after Kentucky is Alabama. So I'm thinking Kirby Smart saying to himself, you know what? We're probably going to beat this team. They're not going to score against us.
Yeah.
Half of Kentucky week, we're practicing for Alabama, which again didn't make a lot of sense because you were down 28-0 in the
Yeah, you're right.
to start that
Right.
Alabama game. And then the same thing with Mississippi State week. They just finished up playing Auburn. Mississippi State has one of the worst defenses in college football.
Horrible.
And the next game is Texas. So he's probably the team is probably not going all in preparing for those games. I know he probably never say that publicly, but that's sort of what I gleaned from looking at Kirby's. If you just look at the how they play seasons out. But the Florida game, unfortunately for us, is off of a bye week, and Kirby Smart, this is usually the time where he wants his team to turn around and start to really play their best football. Um, so I'm not sure we can take as much from the Mississippi State and Kentucky games as we want, other than I do think that this Georgia team, and in the last, I don't know, since we just talked about, we just beat them twice in the last like 8 years. Um, this is probably the year that I feel a little bit more confident in our ability to match up with them. Like I don't think they're just going to straight up run us off the field unless um, in-game decisions start to mount. And if you go back and look at that Tennessee game, that was a game where we made in-game decisions that were really, really poor, and it cost us points. This is a game where making those decisions won't just cost you points on your end, it will score points for Georgia. And the game will start to get out of hand. So we've got to really make sure that not only were we playing hard, which I really feel confident the team will play hard, but Billy and the team and the boys and the coaches have come up with a really good game plan to attack Georgia.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with everything you said. Also, Kentucky, every single year it gives Georgia a hard time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's like literally that's the one game. And same thing with Kentucky, they give us a really hard time. So they just have Mark Stoops just has some teams' numbers, and I think that he knows Kirby Smart. So in the Mississippi State game, like you said, a really bad defense, but definitely overlooked them. And like you said, they're not going to overlook the Florida Gators. They hate Florida. Kirby Smart hates Florida.
Yes.
And this is one of those games, man, that no matter what, it's a game that you have to go into prepared and ready because the other team, and also too, this Gator team that we have has some of the most fight I've seen out of a team in a while. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
And even though we've been all over the place, I mean, our 3 losses have been to good teams. And they find ways to bounce back, and this team should be 5-2, right? 6-2, but this is a good football team, and they're getting better, and if they want to make a statement, this is your chance to make a statement. And if Billy Napier wants to stay as Florida's coach and wants to keep the fans invested in this team, because listen, you have Texas next week, and then you have LSU and Ole Miss at home. Like, these are big games, man. And if you want your fans, and those are games you have to win, Ole Miss and LSU. Yeah. And obviously, LSU showed they're vulnerable last night. We'll get to that later. So if you have to keep the fans in it, and you have to get the home field advantage. And luckily, you've sold out 10 games in a row. But if we come in here and we drop 2 losses to Texas and Georgia and get blown out by both, I promise you, we're not going to win LSU and Ole Miss. We might win one of them, but we're not going to. We need to almost win out here in those final 3 games, and that's not going to happen if we don't at least punch these guys in the mouth, prove a point. And Napier's getting more animated. He needs to stay animated. We talked about this last week because, Kirby Smart's going to be on that sideline pushing guys, getting in guys' faces, pushing players, as we know, from the other team. So we have to make sure that, these guys are getting getting into it, man, and getting that emotion and energy up. And I'm with you there. Now, you were awesome enough to make a stat line for us here of of some of the stats from Georgia. So if you want to pull that up on your end as well, EJ, have it up for everyone to see.
Okay.
I love the DJ Lagway image over the SwampCast logo. It's iconic, baby. That's what we love to see. So yeah, let's take a look at Georgia's offense, man, and what they bring. You look at Georgia's offense, strength of schedule 14th, points per game, about 33 points, 428 yards per game, yards per play, 6.1. A team that does rely more on the pass. They have not been able to run the ball like previous Georgia teams have been able to do.
Yeah.
Yards per rush still 4.5, but only 130 per game. When usually they're that's what their bread and butter is running that football to open up the passing game. That's what they did with Stetson Bennett and even back to Fromm. So they love to run the rock. They have not been able to do well with that. You even look at the big reason why is you look at their run blocking grades from PFF. I was looking at that earlier. They have not had a game over 58 on the PFF scale for their run blocking. So this is a team that, they're getting yards rushing. That's because you have ETN and these other talented backs back there bouncing off of guys, right? And having some of these explosive plays every now and then. But yeah, their run blocking has not been good this year. And the good news is our run defense has gotten better every single game. They've pretty much the whole season has been in the high 70s, except for games like Texas A&M and some of the ones where with Marcel Reed running all over us, which LSU knows that pain now. But yeah, so we've been in the high 70s now with the run defense, so that is one thing to pay attention to. And Georgia's going to have to rely on passing the football. So we'll see. Have you heard anything, EJ, about Jason Marshall coming back in the secondary? Is he doing okay or?
So I haven't heard for sure. We won't know for sure until Wednesday when Billy Napier is sort of forced because of the new SEC rules to give out the injury report. I think the good news is we have not heard that it's either season ending or a significant injury. So I'm assuming that it's going to likely be a game time decision. What probably happened was he probably, popped the shoulder out of the socket. You got to pop that thing back in, and there's probably some inflammation, some discomfort. Usually something like that is about 3 weeks before you start feeling like 80%. So we'll see what he can muster during this week.
Yeah, that's gonna be a key. You know what I mean? We have
Key.
to
Very key.
very key. So let me hear your thoughts on the Georgia offense, man. How they line up against this Gator defense and what we should expect them to do.
So it's a really interesting when you look at the Georgia offense statistically this year versus previous Kirby years. So to your point, they're passing the ball 61% of their plays this year, which is a lot higher than previous years. And they're only running at about 39% of the time. What they do to effectively kind of move the football is they're hitting intermediate passes down the field. Carson Beck doesn't really have a big time go-to target this year. He's been very, very balanced in distributing the ball to all of their wide receivers, which could be a good or a bad thing, right? I think the key to their offense is going to be their true ability to run the football against the Florida front four. Because I think if Florida has to devote any more resources than just the defensive lineman and maybe one middle linebacker, the Georgia offense is going to be very, very difficult to stop for Florida. I think when you go back and look at the games that Georgia has struggled, namely that Kentucky game, Kentucky was able to get really good leverage in both the A and the C gaps just with their front four. And it forced Georgia to play a very, very conservative game. Kirby Smart did not want to turn the ball over in that game and risk throwing the football into the Kentucky defense because he knew that the Kentucky offense wasn't going to score against them either.
Mhm.
So I think that's the key to Georgia. They have sort of this adaptive offensive game plan where if they need to spread it out and go high-powered passing game, they can do that. If they need to buckle down and run the football, they can do that. It's all based on what the defense is going to give them, but it's also based on how effective the Florida offense is. So to me, this is sort of a almost a reverse intuitive game where the Florida offense is going to also have to play defense a little bit. Like we're going to have to keep the ball away from Georgia as much as we can, win the time of possession with the Florida offense. That means being able to run the football. But that's one component of playing defense in this game, and it goes back to Billy Napier's comment, following the Kentucky game, which was, it was complementary football. It was the offense playing well. It was the defense getting stops and getting turnovers. You're gonna have to play a complete game anytime you play against Georgia, because if one side of the ball isn't great, then the other side for Georgia is going to capitalize, and they're really really good at that. When you look at their third down, when you look at the stats, we're actually pretty even when you compare to previous years. Like previous years, it was like we don't have a chance based on the stats and their strength of record against the teams that they've played. But total yards per play, we're only allowing 5.5. They're doing 6. We're giving up fewer points per play than what they're scoring. And passing yards per game, they're a little bit less than 300 yards per game. We're giving up about 206 yards a game, and completion percentage is give or take 6 or 7 points there. The key is going to be the rushing attack for Georgia. If we can control Trevor Etienne and stop the running game at the point, I'm talking handoff on like a fullback dive type of play. If we can contain those plays, we have our percentage chance of winning this game goes up tremendously, and we've got to keep them less than their average, which is 4.5 yards a carry.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
And you point out something that's important. Their third down percentage is actually one of the lowest in the country when you look at it. They're like, I believe, 84th. So when you look at that, which we're higher, like you were saying. So, Georgia on third downs has not been in the best position. Why? Because they're forced to throw the ball, what they're not comfortable really doing. And they've done it a lot this year, but that's because they, like you said, they kind of have to, right? Because, they've been getting stuffed, and that's kind of what we have to do. So this actually kind of goes to my key. We're going to have a segment later where we talk about keys to the game and give an offensive, defensive, but I'll just say my defensive one now is hold Georgia to third and longs. You know what I'm saying? Which means that it's pretty much exactly what you're saying. That means we're stuffing them. That means we're not allowing them to run the ball on us on first and second down. We're holding them third and longs. Something that the Florida defense has been struggling a little bit this year with doing. You know what I mean? You can go back to the early on in Texas A&M, whatever. They were getting 5 yards on a first down. You know what I'm saying? So then it's second and short or second and medium, and then they get another 3 yards, and then it's third and short. It's like we same thing happened last year even with Austin Armstrong. Is we hold these guys on first and second down, and we get them to third down almost every single time, but then they get a first down, and so then we lose time of possession, right? Like you were talking about. So that's gonna be very hard to get that, man. And so I think that was a great key on your end of time of possession is gonna be key. I'm which scares me because then that gives DJ more opportunities to make mistakes. And that's what you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'm so excited to see him against a defense that's going to be aggressive. A defense that hasn't really been able to, I mean, listen, they had a lot of turnovers, of course, against Texas, but in other games, they really haven't been this like turnover machine in the
Right.
secondary. You know what I mean? They've done good getting fumbles and, strip sacks and all that, but when it comes to interceptions, not a team that's flying around. You don't see Reggie Nelson back there. You know what I mean? But it's definitely a team that plays aggressive and hard. So can DJ limit their interceptions, and can we consistently run the ball? We have Jalen Ball's coming into this week with a lot of confidence. You know what I mean? Jaden Ball's coming
Yeah.
in here ready to run the rock, and I don't know what Montrell's status is, but we could have 3-4 running backs ready to go, and you need to cycle them and keep them fresh and keep pounding the rock. And like you said, we're gonna have to be able to have that time possession, but at the same time stop this Georgia offense. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said, man. I think that's all gonna be key.
Absolutely. One key stat I think is I'm ready to put some money on the team that has the most sacks in this game is going to be the team that wins this game. Um, we have 17 sacks this year. We've given up 10. We've been sacked 10 times. They have 18 sacks and they've been sacked 8 times. So it's sort of a similar situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the last 4 games, I don't have the stat on me, but I would be shocked if we got to their quarterback at all the last few games, in terms of getting pressure, forcing either Carson Beck or Stetson Bennett to make any type of rush decisions
Yeah.
throwing the football. Um, that is going to be such a critical stat for us because a team that throws the ball 61% of the time, you have got to get pressure on Carson Beck. What you see is when you look at their receivers, their top rated receivers are all running backs, basically. Trevor Etienne out of the backfield, Cash Jones out of the backfield, Branson Robinson out of the backfield. So what that shows is um, when Carson Beck does have pressure on him, and they've only been sacked 8 times, he has a tendency to know where that outlet is. The thing with DJ Lagway, that's sort of true freshman situation, is that when the Georgia pressure gets to him, is he gonna panic or is he gonna think outlet, dump off? Let me dump it off to Montrell. Let me dump it off to Jaden.
Right.
And is Billy Napier gonna have that sort of wired to him? Also, throwing the ball away, not throwing it up for grabs, when the pressure gets to him. There are some situations with clock where you can't take a sack, but a lot of times, if we're early in the first quarter, you're in the third quarter, a sack is better than a forced throw into the Georgia defense.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the key tidbits. Hopefully, they're working with DJ on this week.
It's scary, man, when you got a young quarterback, getting his first test, man, and you're going against a Georgia team that has all the momentum. You know what I mean? LSU and Texas A&M beating the hell out of each other. Like, you have so much momentum right here if you're the Georgia Bulldogs, and you're right up there at the top of the SEC. So, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy game for DJ Lagway, but good news is we have a head coach and offensive coordinator who doesn't like to throw the ball down the field. So, DJ is going to be throwing a lot of screens, I'm sure, a lot of these stupid slants and hitch routes. But I don't know. The thing about this Georgia defense is they don't like you throwing deep. You know what I'm saying? So,
No.
And they hate it because they do it themselves. You look at a lot of their receivers; they're all averaging like 15 yards, every time they touch the ball. With some bombs down the field. Lovett is down there. Let me see, Lovett. You have even Dylan Bell. You have Dominic Lovett, of course. So even Humphreys, London Humphreys, a guy who only has 6 receptions, but like is averaging 20 yards a touch. So you have guys that are very explosive in the receiving game. So then they themselves don't like you to throw the ball deep on them.
Right.
DJ is a kind of guy who that's how he gets his confidence. That's what he's most comfortable with. DJ Lagway is not even on like platform when he throws these deep balls. Well, if you watch him throw a deep ball, he jumps up every single time. It's really weird. I don't know what his fundamentals are. It's really strange, but he's comfortable throwing those deep balls. If you're Billy Napier, what I'm worried about is he's going to be too conservative with DJ early because DJ is not comfortable with throwing slants. He's not comfortable, well, slants maybe, but he's not comfortable with throwing hitches as we've seen. You know what I mean? He's thrown some really bad hitches before. He's not comfortable doing these dump offs, you know? You know how many times in these previous games where he's had a guy in the flat wide open, you know what I mean? Ball, for example, even the Kentucky game was wide open on multiple flat or in the flat, and he just doesn't want to throw it and he keeps looking downfield, and that kind of ended badly for him sometimes. So what I'm worried about is Napier's going to force him to throw these underneath routes when he's not comfortable doing that. So I really hope we can get DJ and give him some kind of momentum, and I feel like the only way to do that is to take the top off this defense. Can we do that? That's what I'm key for. Is Napier going to be aggressive? We'll see.
Can I just say I completely 100% agree with you on that one. One thing that Napier what a frustrating thing from Napier is when you see this is a potential strength of the team or this player is potentially a great player, Napier doesn't really go to that well. And to your point, like when you look at Florida's receiving depth of 20 plus yards, 10 to 19, short passes, the further we throw the ball, the higher the rating we are.
Yeah,
So
it's
we're
crazy.
like a 90. It's crazy. We're like a 95%, which is top 5 percentile in the country on passes 20 yards or more down the field. 94% medium 10 to 19, and then it drops off to 86 when we're hitting short 0 to 9 yards. So what that tells me is throw the ball, particularly the deep left of the field, the deep left quadrant of the field, 20 yards down the field is 92 is a 92 percentile. And then Elijah Badger particularly leads the nation in yards per catch. I think he's at 26 yards per reception or something ridiculous like that. So Georgia's defense is going to be programmed to let's get pressure on these with our front four. So can Florida stand up to that? Let's have a potential spy just in case DJ Lagway decides he's going to take off. And then we're going to keep two deep safeties and to prevent any deep left or deep right throws down the field. So that means the middle of the field will probably be open. We haven't seen DJ Lagway attack the middle of the field. Georgia is going to allow him to do that. Can we do that? The other thing is going to be the outlets, the dump offs. Those will probably be open, but is Florida going to do that? I remember, I don't know if you remember this game, but it was a Will Muschamp game. I think it was 2013 or was it 2011? I don't remember. It was a while ago. Oh, or was it actually, this might have been a long time ago. Carlos Perez.
Oh wow!
In the Florida Gator receiving attack. Yeah, this was actually.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is a while ago.
Yeah, I think this had to be like 2003. But it was the best game plan I had seen drawn up in the Florida Georgia game. We had to throw at least like 20 wide receiver screens out to Carlos, just hike, throw it out to the side. And that was back when Georgia, that they gave us those plays.
Yeah.
And we hadn't really done that all year. And then Carlos Perez ends up going off in that game. There was another Will Muschamp year where we had Matt Jones and I think it was Kelvin Taylor rushed for over 400 something yards.
I
It was
remember
a
that.
brilliant game plan by Will. I was like, where'd you come up with this game plan? I don't know
Uh-huh.
if it was emerged during the game, but he said no, we thought we could run the ball on them. We need to see something like that in this game from Florida. Like, do we see something that we can do against Georgia? Can we go to it and keep going to it, force Georgia to be the team to make adjustments, um, and see where we go?
The thing with Billy Napier is he's just so, I don't know, man. He has like that one game a year where he does some crazy stuff. You know what I mean? And you know, you never know what his game plan is going to be. And especially with a young quarterback, what will he do? Right. So no
Yeah.
telling, man. I'm very curious. One thing about DJ Lagway that he needs to do as well that I've seen is he's not comfortable in the pocket. He loves to escape the pocket, and I'm telling you right now, these defensive ends and these tackles, they're disciplined. They're not going to let you go out, bro. If you start, panicking in that pocket and try to leave, they're going to close that gap really, really fast. Yeah. And that's what I'm a little worried about. Because there's multiple times we can even take the Kentucky game because that's his one SEC start. That one of the drives where we talked about this last week, but one of the drives where he was in the red zone that ended up in the field goal, as we know, that was really frustrating. He 2 times in a row escaped the pocket when he didn't need to. All he had to do was step up. That's it. Yeah. Just step up, move to the left a little bit, and those both ended in incompletions or sacks. And so that's my thing with DJ is if he can get, it's going to be very hard to do because those are NFL linemen. Those are scary guys, they're huge. But can he just get a little comfortable in there, trust his blind side, just step up in the pocket and make a throw? I think he'll be okay. But if he tries to scramble around, it's going to look like he has no time in the pocket. You know what I mean? Because he's not giving himself time in the pocket. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. The whole game, I feel like, relies around DJ Lagway, right, and what they do with him. And just because we don't have a lot of data points to take from, it's just going to be one of those games that it's really hard to predict because we don't know. It's crazy. Billy Napier's been our coach for 3 years. We don't know Billy Napier and what I mean, and how he's gonna and what he's gonna do with DJ. Because is he gonna have like the Tennessee in 2022 when we throw the ball like crazy and Richardson goes off for 463 yards and we're playing spread, we're playing empty, and it's just like, what is this? This is not Billy Napier. Or are we gonna see Billy Napier against Miami? You know what I mean? Where he just does, it's the most conservative game plan you can imagine. I'm really curious on to see what's going to happen here, and what kind of Billy Napier we get, what kind of game plan we get, and when you're pointing out great stats, EJ. Like we actually, when you look at the stats for the Georgia offense and the Florida defense, we look, it kind of favors us in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? Like it really does. Like I said, the big one for me that I was talking about is they have not been able to run the football. Our run defense has gotten better and better each and every week. And, the fact that's huge. Their third down percentage is one of the worst in the country. Like there's a lot of, this is not the same Georgia team. And this is what I love about college football this year is there's vulnerability everywhere you look. You know what I'm saying? There's not one team, and that confirmed it these past couple weeks. There's not one team that's like the number one team. You know what I'm saying? Even look at Ohio State, they struggled again. Like it's a very weird year in college football, and I think anything can happen here. The Gators can go in here and get the win. So yeah, with the Georgia offense against the Georgia defense, man, really interesting stuff there. We'll see what happens. We also have when Florida has the ball. If you want to move on to that,
let's do it.
So, well, I know we kind of tapped into Florida offense a little bit, but we're going to kind of dive through some of the stats here. Florida offense versus the Georgia defense. Florida offense strength of record 29th in the country. Georgia's defense is 5th. Then you look at points per game. Georgia's defense only letting up 17 points a game. That's insane. While Florida's offense is around 30, which is 5 more points than last year. I think last year we were averaging like 25 or like 26, something like that. So we're scoring more points this year because of our father, DJ Lagway. And then we have total yards per game. Florida 413. Georgia only letting up 100 yards less at 305. And then the yards per play, Florida 6.1, Georgia 5. And then the points per play, we're almost at 0.5, which is actually pretty good when you really look at it, with Georgia only usually letting up 0.2 points per play. And then passing yards is something that they have, rushing yards as well. You cannot run the ball in this Georgia defense. They're only letting up about 107 yards a game, while Florida's going about 150 a game. But really, if the Florida run game has been getting better, you know what I mean, these past couple games, especially against Kentucky, so we'll see kind of how that translate. But Georgia's defense lets up around 200 yards with the about 200 yards with the passing game. So it's kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, EJ, on, we're just going to have to be able to try to run the ball a little bit, but passing the ball is what we're going to have to do to get DJ going and to get this Georgia defense, because their front seven is really talented as always, and they have a really, really solid group. Good news is our third down percentage is about 41, which is really good. But Georgia's defense only letting up 30. So, we are way better in the third down percentage than Georgia. One of the actually a lot better. And so that's one thing to look at. If we can get in third and short situations, that's solid for us. It's just going to be like you were saying earlier, EJ. Whoever gets the most sacks will win this game, because Florida and third and long situations is not what you want. That's one thing about Napier, is he loves to run the ball, obviously, on the first two downs. The good thing about that is you're usually not going to lose many yards, right? So the third downs get a little bit shorter. But if you're back there taking sacks and getting pressure on Lagway, and it's just, we can't have that. So that's going to be a big key for us. EJ, how do you feel? Let me hear your thoughts on Florida's offense versus Georgia defense. What do you think? I mean, we already really talked a lot about that in the past thing, but how do you feel? What do you think the keys are? I got my key as well. We could talk about it in a little bit, but how do you feel?
Yeah, I'd love to hear your key. So the key for our defense, I think, was total number of sacks that we can generate on a team that passes the ball. For the offense, the key is going to be rushing yards. Can we out-rush Trevor Etienne and this Georgia offense? The traitor, Trevor.
Traitor Trevor. Yes, sir. Love that.
And to be honest with you, I mean, all the guys are probably still good friends with him, but at the end of the day, when we kick this ball off, we need to be able to just say, look, we're taking his head off. He's not going anywhere. And this team only averages 130 yards rushing a game, not because that's sort of necessarily low, but because they number one, they're not as good. They don't have as many elite run blockers as they've typically had on the offensive line. They're a little bit better graded in the pass blocking. And when you look at some of the defensive lines that they've played, maybe it's just a combination of, those teams are just good at stopping the run. But I think for Florida, we've got to be able to generate a running attack. And I think it's going to start in the first few drives of this game. I think what you're going to see from Georgia is Kirby Smart is going to, and Schumann, their defensive coordinator, they're going to line up a base defense with 4 linemen and 2, maybe 3 linebackers. And they're going to see what can Florida generate against a base defensive front with 2 deep safeties. If Florida is able to get past the line of scrimmage before contact, then I think they'll see how long that goes before they start devoting more resources up to the line of scrimmage. They typically do not like to do that. They typically don't have to do that. But if we're struggling to run the ball, if Georgia is getting underneath blocks with guys like CJ Allen, who is a linebacker who likes to hit gaps for them. He's one of their highest graded run stoppers, along with Christian Miller and Michael Williams. So these are like 3 pretty elite run stoppers for them. Those are going to be the guys that get into the gaps. How they get into the gaps is their D tackles are able to hold firm on their blocks, getting underneath blocks into those gaps and forcing the running back directly either into a tackle or directly into one of these edge or linebackers that come in and make a tackle. Georgia's defense also does not give up the edge pretty much at all. In order for you to get the edge on Georgia, typically you have to have a pulling guard, or it's got to be some sort of a play where you have a lead blocker that's following the running back to the outside, because typically their linebackers know that it's going to the edge, and instead of hitting the gap, they'll come behind it, and they're just so fast that they're going to tackle you immediately. And their safeties also rotate toward the flow of the play, typically better than any defense in the country. So if the play is rolling right, the defense will always alternate right and make a tackle immediately at the line of scrimmage. And they also have great back end on some of those deep passes. So if we're able to run the ball, which when you look at our guys, you know, our offensive line from a run blocking standpoint has been very, very, very good this season relative to last year. Last year, when you looked at PFF, we didn't have any guys that were well, actually, let's check. Uh, well, last year we had Christian Williams, but that really didn't count in terms of the number of run blocks. But if you looked at run blocks per the high volume guys, we have a couple of guys that are really, really good. Jake Slaughter has played much better than last year. Crenshaw Dickinson, who I think is that a freshman, Brandon Crenshaw Dickinson, has been
I think so.
really, yeah, he's been actually is like a transfer. He's been really, really solid run blocking this season. And Jaden Baugh also, well, he's been an exceptional as a true freshman pass blocker, and also a blocker when the play breaks down and DJ Lagway scrambles. When Baugh's in the game, he actually goes out and lays some really good blocks for DJ Lagway. So when you look at this yards per rush situation, if we're able to run the football better than our average, which is 4.5 per game or per rush, I really it have to be some sort of miscellaneous stat as to how we lose this game, because Georgia would typically never allow us to run the football. You go back and you look at the Texas game, Georgia completely. Now then Vanderbilt kind of played decent too, but Georgia completely eliminated Texas's rushing attack. And what happens when you do that is now all of a sudden the team is okay. We're going to abandon the run. We're not going to have a balanced attack. We're going to throw the football. And now Georgia's defense starts to work. They start to get pressure. They start to deflect passes. They start to get interceptions. So you've got to maintain, and that's what Kentucky did against Georgia. It was ugly, but they maintained balance the entire game. Both teams really didn't have any. I don't think either team gained over 300 yards in that game, but it was a tug of war type of matchup. If we can turn the game into that, I think from an offensive standpoint, and then take the top off, that's how we should play this game, as opposed to just trying to come out and run a conventional offense. I think, Georgia is probably going to be ready for that. So that's the key. Running the football. I think Montrell Johnson will be good to go in this game. So that's an exceptional 1-2 punch with him and Baugh. And even if Montreal isn't 100% in this game, we've shown that we've got
Jacoby is amazing. Jackson.
Jackson is
Yeah.
incredible backup, so I think we'll be good to go.
No, I'm with you. So that's actually one of my keys, or my key for the offense is 5 plays of 20 plus yards. We need to see explosives, whether it's in the run game, like you
Yes.
were saying, or in the pass game. Good news is we've shown that we're explosive in the run game. Montrell with his 70-yard, explosive game run that he had. Jaden Ball had one that was like 30 yards, and then you have Jacoby Jackson, I believe, with a long of 19 yards. That should have been longer, but these
Wow.
guys are capable of exploding. DJ Lagway, ran for over 20 yards at one point. So like we can be explosive in the run game. We know about the pass game. We know DJ can throw bombs. You know what I'm saying? That needs to happen. But I need to see more explosiveness out of the run game. And Jaden Ball showed that against a Kentucky team that doesn't allow explosives. You know what I mean? This Kentucky
Correct.
defense keeps everything in front of them. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that we were able to have some plays, the one play where they tapped, Jaden Ball's ankle, that should have been a all the way to the house. You know what I mean? That should have been a 50, 60-yard, run all the way. And so we've been doing really good with the run blocking, like you were saying, man. And if we can just create explosives, that's going to be huge, because that's something that's what Billy Napier's offense is really built around. You know what I'm saying? It's built around, these playmakers creating explosive plays, you know what I'm saying, off of simple designs. And it really relies on the playmaking ability of his players, which is stupid, but besides the point. So, but you have these guys in the backfield that can create explosive plays, and that's what we're going to have to do there. So I'm with you on the running the football. That's going to be key. We have to keep this Georgia defense on its toes, because if they find a rhythm, it's over. If the Georgia defense finds what you're doing, they're so talented that they're gonna figure you out. One guy you pointed out was Michael Williams on the defensive line. Dude, absolute monster. Forced fumble this year. Dude's a good football player on that line, and just an absolute unit. You have to be very careful. There's so many playmakers up there. So if we could just create explosive plays, man, something that the Gators have not been able to do. Here's a fun thing, and I don't have the stat for this, but I'd love for you guys to look it up. If you look at the games that we won in compared to the games we lost, go look at the explosive plays. You know what I mean? We didn't really have much in Miami and Texas A&M. You know what I'm saying? But you look at the games we actually won, we had explosives all over the place. You know what I mean? Whether it's Mississippi State, whether it's Kentucky, we created these explosive plays, and that's going to be a UCF. You know what I mean? It was another one. So we have to learn how to make something out of nothing. And we have the playmakers to do that. Also, get Trey Wilson involved. This is a guy that even last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever, when we played Kentucky, had one bomb at the beginning of the game. But other than that, he had like one other touch. Why? Like, you have such a good playmaker. You have like a little Percy Harvin on the outside. You know what I mean? And it's just like you're not using him. You're not throwing him. I don't know, man. It's really weird. And if you do give him touches, it's on like just a jet sweep. It's like, don't do a jet sweep. You know what I mean? Do a stop and go. Do something that's going to get him in open space. And it's just like, my thing with Napier's offense is, with his passing game, schemes and everything, is he doesn't create like rub routes. He doesn't do anything to get guys open in space. He just runs routes. And it's just like, if you have a very standard defense, you can stop these things from happening. And, I just do something creative to get Trey Wilson in space. Do something creative to get, Mizell in space, or even Tank Hawkins. These are quick guys. Like, any other team that would have this wide receiver room that we have, they would be going off right now and using these guys, and then you got like big bodies like DK and Badger, it's like these guys are NFL receivers. They're going to be in the NFL. Almost every single guy in our wide receiver room will be an NFL type level player, and we're not using them to their capabilities. It's so weird when you look at this team and how much talent we have, and how we're not able to create explosive plays. And that's something I'm going to be looking for in this game. Napier has to make it happen, and if not, man, I'm going to have some serious questions. I don't care who we're playing. You have to create explosive plays with the players that you have, and that's going to come down to scheme. It's going to come down to your creation of your plays, and what you have in that book. So that's my thing, man, is have 5 or more plays of 20 yards plus yards. I think that if we can get those, I think that means that we took the top off the defense and we were able to run the ball and create explosive plays, and also, like you were saying earlier, have time of a time of possession, have control of that football. I think that's going to be key. So I'm with you there, man. We'll see what happens, but that's a big key for me.
And I looked up a couple stats. So
Okay.
you're absolutely right. When you look at some of these years of explosive plays, I mean, 2017, that's when Georgia beat us. I think it was 42-7. Georgia had 3 explosive plays. 2 of them were Nick Chubb, 55-yard touchdown run, Sony Michel, 74-yard touchdown run. Florida, 0 plays of 20 yards or more. 2018, Georgia, 4 explosive plays. They had a 63-yard punt return for a touchdown. They had Riley Ridley having a 75-yard touchdown. Now, Freddie Swain did have a 36-yard touchdown reception in that game, so that was 1. But 4-1 winning from Georgia's standpoint. 2020, oh, look at this. 2020, Florida had 4 explosive plays to Georgia's 1, and guess who won that game? Florida. Pitts had a 56-yard touchdown. Grimes had a 50-yard touchdown. Tony had a 25-yard touchdown. Zamir White started the game, though, with a 75-yard touchdown run. 2021, no explosive plays by Florida, 3 by Georgia. Georgia wins 34-7. 2022, 3 explosive plays by Georgia, 1 by Florida. That was a Xavier Henderson 78-yard touchdown reception that made it 28-20 momentarily in the third quarter, by the way. And then 2023, 3 explosive plays from Georgia. Brock Bowers with 2 of them. Ladd McConkey had a 47-yard touchdown. Ricky Pearsall did have a 27-yard touchdown, but the game was pretty much over with by then. So to your point, the team that has had the most explosive plays is pretty much undefeated in these last 5 or 6 games. And the team that has won the turnover battle is 6-1 in the last 7. So, hey, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it seems obvious, but that we have to it's so important, man. So that's why I think that's big. And even going back to what you just said with the turnover battle, man, I mean, I mean Carson Beck, a guy who has been vulnerable even outside of the Texas game, does not look good this year. I mean, he's not a bad quarterback, but just not fluid, not comfortable in the pocket. He hesitates a lot,
Yeah.
Even the Mississippi State game I watched a little bit of. He just didn't seem, and he's in Sanford Stadium, just didn't seem comfortable back there. He doesn't have the run game to rely on, you know what I'm saying? And so that's something really interesting to look at. Well, watch Carson Beck, can this Gator defense, this would be the game to add in the creepers, you know what I'm saying? But obviously ever since we got rid of that, it's gotten a little bit better. But if we can, because our guys just weren't doing their job, but if we can incorporate some creepers here, mix that with our too high look that Ron Roberts wants to do, whatever, I think that we can make Carson Beck uncomfortable back there. You know what I mean? Can we stop the run? That's a different story. But we can. There are ways to hold Georgia to not a lot of points in this game. We have to get creative. On defense, we have to get creative. On offense, we have to get creative. We have not done that in the past. We'll see what happens here. It's going to be a big game, man. It's going to tell me a lot about this coaching staff. I think that's the best way to put it, and tell us a lot about DJ
100%.
Flagway. So we will see. Yeah, I mean, EJ. Only other thing I can think of is you look at special teams. We can kind of touch on that real quick. Nothing crazy. Their place kicker. His name is Peyton Woodring. This guy is 25 out of 25 for his extra points, 12 out of 13 for field goals, so 92%. With 1, he missed on a 50-plus yarder, but he also then hit a 50-plus yarder from 55, which was obviously really good. So this is a guy who's pretty much automatic, really, really good kicker. Then you look at the Florida Gators and our place kicking this year with Trey Smack. Trey 7 of 9 with one that was missed from 40 to 49, another that was missed from 50 yards, but along of 47 points. So Trace Mack's been on. I think both those missed field goals came from the same game, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I think he's had one of those games, but other than that, though, I think we're in a good place. I think special teams, they don't have a severe advantage over the Gators. So we'll see. But EJ, do you have anything else to add to this game before we make our prediction?
Yeah, special teams, to your point, I think is pretty even. I mean, when you look at um, yards per punt, net average per punt, Georgia's at 45. We're at 44.7.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but here's an interesting one: touchback percentage. Both of the place kickers kick off. Florida hits a touchback 71% of the time. For Georgia, 49% of the time. So Georgia allows a team to actually return it. Now, whether or not the team decides, they're going to fair catch it is another thing. So in terms of leg power, Smack has got the leg power.
Mm-hmm.
The other interesting thing in this is penalties. Florida is having a really good year at being one of the least penalized teams in the SEC. They have 40 total penalties this year for 51 yards per game. Georgia has 50 total penalties this year for 72 yards in penalty yards a game. So uh, it looks like from a penalty standpoint, um, you know, uh, we're a little bit more disciplined
Mm-hmm.
than they are. Um, we've lost 3 fumbles this year. They've lost only one. And I believe from an interception standpoint, it's about even. We've thrown 7 interceptions this season, and they've thrown 8. So, man, these are pretty even stats.
The time of possession
Um,
as well. I just saw that time of possession
time of
is even.
possession, like 29 to like 28.6 or something like
Yeah.
that. It's man, interesting game, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think this is it's gonna be interesting, man. I'm scared to make this pick.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. When it's weird, like especially me. I know back in the day we would always beat Georgia. Like Georgia was never a problem. You know what I'm saying? You would go in there, you would kill Georgia. You know what? It was like Kentucky before Dan Mullen, where it's 32 years of killing them. You didn't have to worry about them. I started really watching college football back in around 2012, right? And so I've just seen very dominant Georgia teams. You know what I mean? That's at Georgia's like my Bama kind of, right? And so it almost feels weird to beat Georgia. It doesn't feel right to beat Georgia. You know what I mean? So when you look at the stats here, Florida's looking good. They line up with Georgia pretty well. You know what I'm saying? Obviously they have a lot more talent on their football team or whatever, but when you look at stats, man, and how they've been playing, this is really interesting. And I think Florida has more fight than Georgia right now. And on paper, I feel like Florida can get this done, but we'll see. So, do you wanna make the prediction? You wanna go for it?
So I just want to say again, I love our generational gap here.
Yeah,
Me being a millennial, and I think you're Gen Z, right? So,
yeah, yeah,
um, because when I started getting into football, it was like, oh, it's a Georgia week, we're gonna plaster them, whatever. And we usually would beat them pretty bad every single year. And then the tide has turned a little bit. Georgia is now the dominant team. They've just held on to their Urban Meyer a lot longer than we were able to.
hmm
Um, I think this game, it's been interesting. The line, I think, opened up at 21, 22, something like that. It's now down to 18. I think a lot of people have started to bet Florida
okay,
um, against the spread. Um, it is hard for me to see either one of these teams running away from each other, assuming a miscellaneous stat like turnovers, which has proven to not really be a main factor
Mhm.
unless one of those things happens. Florida has played statistically and profile, from a profile standpoint, two defenses that are very comparable to Georgia. That's Tennessee and that's Texas A&M. Those two defenses are very similar to Georgia's. Florida was only able to score 20 against Texas A&M, and we scored 17 against Tennessee, although we should have had a lot more against Tennessee. So if you're going from that sort of standpoint, adding in the fact that I think Florida can extend the field, I'll say Florida will score 24 points in this game, assuming all things equal. When you look at the Florida Gator defense against Georgia, I like our defense to hold them in the first half, but I do think Georgia will eventually start to just exert a little bit more continuity in the second half. I think they're probably lucky that Lagway's only a true freshman and Carson Beck is a seasoned veteran. And my rule to picks is I always look at who's got the better quarterback, who's got the better defense. I don't think in the long run Beck will be anywhere near as good as a quarterback as Lagway, but I think for this year he's probably not going to make the key mistake that's going to lose in the game. And then I think Georgia's defense is a little bit better, so I'm going to go Georgia 27, Florida 24 in this game. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, and it's going to look like Florida deserves to be on the same field as Georgia. It's going to be a game where people are going to turn around and they're going to be like, no, Florida went toe to toe with Georgia. I think a lot of people might just dismiss it, but I think for us Florida fans, we're going to be happy at what we're going to see in this game, and it's going to be a positive thing for years on. So 27 Georgia, 24 Florida.
Yeah, man. I'm with you there. You know, like you said, Carson Beck just has experience. You know what I mean? I think that's key in that situation, and having experience in the SEC. You know, Lagway only has one SEC start. That's it. You know what I mean? And that's
Right.
against Kentucky. You're going against an actual SEC defense here with big bodies. And I agree, man. Listen, a big key as well this is something we talked about before, and this is something that I want to hit on again. When Florida gets off to fast starts, we win games. When we get off the fast, we literally every game we've won, we've gotten off the fast starts. And we should have won against Tennessee. We should have won against Tennessee. We shouldn't have gone 1 for 5 in the red zone like we went through. Like, you know, we got off the fast starts, and you look at our two losses against Miami and Texas A&M. We were down 10-0 in both those games right away.
Yep.
I could see that happening against Georgia, but I hope not, because then it's going to be a blowout. I think if Florida gets off to a fast start, which we have been doing even in our loss recently, Florida stays in this game. I agree. I think Florida might even be up at half. I think Florida will come in. I think they'll punch him in the mouth. I think it's going to be crazy. But I think what you were kind of saying, and I agree with, is that Georgia just has more talent. They have bigger guys. They got more guys. And as the game goes on, our guys are going to get worn out. They're going to keep subbing. Dude, have you seen how much they substitute their defense? Kirby always has like 5 guys ready to send in. It's like an NFL team. They keep putting in these fresh bodies, and I don't know if our offensive line can hold that. I don't know if our running backs can keep getting hit like that. I have it being a very close game. I have Georgia scoring 27 points and Florida 20, so we were kind of on the same page there, which is really funny. And I think it's just going to come down to, I think we're going to have some explosive plays. I don't think we'll have 5 of them, but I do think we'll have a couple explosive plays that will lead to touchdowns, long touchdowns, whether it's a bomb by Lagway or a super long run. And I think that's going to happen early on in this game because we're going to have to get off to a fast start. And I think as the game goes on, Lagway will hit some deep shots. I think he's going to hit deep shots. I feel like he has to. You know what I mean? But I do think he's going to have an interception in this game, and I think that's what's going to, lead to it being like neck and neck and us scoring and then them scoring, and then it being like, oh, then they're going to score because we just threw a pick. And I think I could see it kind of happening like that, and everything kind of falling apart, and us then going down the field and just getting a field goal. So I don't know, man. Because of that situation, I have Georgia winning it, but I think it's gonna be a very close game. I think it's gonna give us Gator fans hope. I think Lagway's gonna have some really good moments. I think we're gonna have a lot of fight in this team. So I have 27-20 Georgia winning this game. It's funny we had the same score for Georgia. So there you go, man.
If Florida won, what do you think? How do you think it would have went down if Florida did win this game?
If Florida wins this game, it's going to come down to Carson Beck not looking good. It's going to come down to Carson Beck struggling to throw the football and us stopping the run, like you said, for your key. We're going to have to stop the run. And if we stop the run, I could see Georgia kind of freaking out and keeping it low. When it comes to offense for us, I think even a turnover, even getting turnovers on defense, I think, and putting Lagway in good situations. Here's something we didn't talk about, EJ. Lagway, I saw this stat when I was looking it up earlier. I don't think I jotted it down, though. If you look at where on the field we start with the football, it's usually like inside or like 15 or 10 yard line with Lagway. That poor guy always has to go 90 yards down the field, and he somehow does it. If we can get good field position and put Lagway in a good situation, I think we're looking good. Now, now I will say this: against Tennessee, we had some really good field position, and we struggled a little bit there. But you have to put your young quarterback in a good situation. And I'm sorry, this team, this isn't Tennessee where you can, go 95 yards down the field. You know what I'm saying? That you can't do that against Georgia. So we're going to have to be put in really good position. And something you pointed out earlier is the fact that, Georgia, they don't do touchbacks. You know what I'm saying? So if we can have some good returns, good punt. DK's been going off. If DK can have some really good returns out there at punt return, I think that's gonna. I think to beat Georgia, we're gonna have to play well in all three facets of the game, right? We're gonna have to go out there. We're gonna have to play phenomenal football all the way around, and that counts special teams with getting our guys in good positions to win. So, like I said, the way I think Florida wins this game is Carson Beck's not gonna look comfortable. He's gonna make a couple mistakes. Lagway's hitting deep shots down the field. He's comfortable back there. He's also using his legs. And then I think special teams is just getting our guys in good field position. Maybe even getting a special teams touchdown, which we've had, some close calls with that.
I love it. I completely agree. I would say since the last 10 years, watching the Florida Georgia game, and we have not been successful against them. Every time I watch a Florida Georgia game the last 10 years, we have not been able to do the little things that we've been doing the first half of the season in this game, meaning catch the punt, don't muff the punt, don't get a stupid penalty on a weird situation. If a guy's wide open like Badger, catch the ball. Typically what's happened when I've seen these Georgia games, muff punt, most sure-handed punt. We do things that we have not done all year. So can we hold that line, baseline, do everything we've been doing all year, and then excel, do a little bit more, like make a play. So those are the things that I'm going to be looking at. Can we continue to do the little things? And the second thing is 3 sacks. I'm telling you, if I look at this stat line tomorrow or next week, sorry, I want to play. I want to play.
I wish it was tomorrow, bro.
Line up and play right now. If we look at that stat line next Sunday and we have 3 sacks, I will say we have a 90% chance of winning this game. Putting Georgia off schedule, behind the sticks with our defense is something we have not even been remotely close. And Georgia's offense has been a locomotive against us. If we can get them behind the sticks and do the little things, I think DJ Lagway gives you a chance to make enough big plays to put the offense in scoring position to have enough points at the end of the game. Believe it or not, this is one of those games where I don't think Mertz, as much as I love Graham Mertz, I don't think he would have given you a chance to win this game because of the style of offense is just conducive to Georgia just completely shutting you down. But when you have a guy like DJ that can extend, take the top, go deep, that is when Georgia's like, uh-oh, like let's not like devote all these people up to the line of scrimmage. So those are the stats. Do the little things and get 3 sacks. I'm just saying, hey, can we get one? Like if we start off the game and we have a sack, I'm gonna be like, oh, it's game time.
Yeah.
It's game
Yep.
on.
Yep.
If we don't get any sacks and when he snaps the ball, he's just back there doing his taxes in the backfield like the Texas A&M game, then we don't have a chance. So there you go.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. We'll see what happens. It's gonna be a really fun game. I'm excited. Like this is the first little feeling of Florida Georgia. You know what I mean? Like it's this
Yeah.
week. I'm hyped, man. It's gonna be a great time. Yeah, I'm gonna be watching it with a buddy of mine. It's gonna be amazing. We will see what goes on there. So I agree with everything you said there, man. There you go. So you guys let us know, man, how you feel about the game this week. What's your score prediction down below? Go ahead and drop it for us, man. We would love to talk with you
Yes.
guys. And by the way, thanks for all the support on the podcast, man. I'm going to get these episodes up on Spotify as well this week, so that's going to be big. So y'all be ready for that if you watch on Spotify as well. And yeah, so we really do appreciate you guys, man. But always drop us comments, man, and make sure you subscribe and like this video. That really does help us out a lot. So there you go, man. All right. We made picks last week. We made some picks last week, baby. Week 9 of college football. I have everything. We have our record, which actually wasn't very different, but we did not do great. So let's go through these 11 games. Let's start out actually with the Friday night game, the Boise State at UNLV. This was a game that last second we're like, hey, you know what? Let's add this. Let's see what happens here. So we went and added this game. Let me pull the stats up real quick. All right, 1 second. Boom. Boise State gets the win 29-24 over UNLV. Ashton Jeanty, man, this guy is just unreal. It's funny.
Yeah.
He had a game, like the game wasn't like he didn't go off like he usually does, and people were like, "Oh, he had an off game," even though he averaged like 5 yards a carry. It's really funny to see. Hold on, let me get this thing pulled up. I want to pull up his actual stats. Where's it at? Come on, 1 second. Here we go. Yeah, let's see. He rushed for 33 carries, 128 yards, 1 touchdown. And everyone's like, "Oh man, he had a horrible game." It's like if you rush for 130 yards with 4 yards a carry and that you get called, you had an off game or a bad game, that's just so funny to me. That shows that you are a Heisman, a Heisman guy who's just going off this season, which was great. And even passing the game, man, Madsen had a really good game. UNLV had a comeback in the second half that I watched a little bit of. They were playing really, really well. And then Boise State comes back in the fourth quarter and wins it, man. They're late. So crazy stuff, man. It was literally 4th and goal. And they got that ball in the end zone, man. So great game from Boise State. UNLV, like I said, did play well in that second half, man, scoring 14 points in the third quarter. Tried to have a comeback. Was passing the ball pretty well, man. And of course running the ball like they always are. They're that kind of gritty football team. So yeah, man. We both picked Boise State to cover by 3 points. And so we both got that one right. So that feels good.
Woo! You got one.
Yeah, we did get one.
Well, this game was in a beautiful, beautiful stadium. I don't know if you've ever been to the Allegiant Vegas Stadium, but it is a really great stadium. And Matson, the quarterback, had looked like he had 58 yards rushing on 4 attempts. He had a big rushing touchdown to start the game. And UNLV, ever since their quarterback decided he didn't get his NIL money and he was going to sit out the rest of the season, their backup has come in and played really, really well. Williams is his name. He's been a really, really, really good quarterback. But yeah, this was sort of exactly how we expected it to go. And 3.9 yards a carry for GT. Not, nearly close to his average, but UNLV has a really good defense. And anytime you can put up 4 yards a carry against a really good defense, one of the tougher defenses on your schedule, you're just solidifying that you're a really good back.
Yep. No, yeah, you ain't lying. Um, yeah, really good game. Fun way to start off the college football season or week. Really good time there, and a really important one for the Mountain West. So big win for Boise State there. Next one we have is Nebraska at Ohio State in Columbus. I watched a lot of this game, man, and dude, this Ohio State offense is they're just not great. They have no explosive plays. Or sorry, did have two explosive plays that got them 14 points early on in this game, but that's all that they had on offense. Literally it. They could not have any consistency on getting first downs. Their play calling was horrendous, running on really weird downs. And look, Ohio State, they have good playmakers. One guy that jumped out at me, we know him, but Travion Henderson, his explosive ability is unbelievable. But both running backs for them, Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins, being held under 3 yards a carry and no explosive plays from them at all. It was really just in the passing game. I mean, Will Howard threw an absolute bomb to Jeremiah Smith and a beautiful ball to Carnell Tate as well there in that game. But that was the only two bright moments from this game. They luckily were going against Dylan Raiola, a young guy, who just, this is, we love Graham Mertz, but this is a Mertz stat if I've ever seen one. 21 of 32 for only 152 yards, right? And it's just like, you can't win games when you're not pushing the ball down the field, and he just doesn't have that experience to do so. Big environment, super loud there, and yeah, Nebraska just, could not get really much going in the passing game, at least consistent enough to score a lot of points. They got a score there late, and try to get the ball back, but that just didn't really work out for them. So this Ohio State team, like I said, really relied on the two explosive plays to keep them in this game. But other than that, EJ, you take those out, Nebraska wins this football game, and that's crazy to think about. So Ohio State, they got to figure out something, man. Their play calling was horrible. I don't know if they're just looking forward to this week, because I think I have them written down. Who are they playing? Penn State. They're at Penn State. So, obviously they're probably looking forward to that game because Nebraska just got absolutely murdered by Indiana last week. But yeah, just a really weird game from Ohio State, man. Watching it, it was very unsettling.
Yeah, it's what makes it really hard to kind of gauge who the top teams in the country are. I mean, Oregon and Ohio State to me are pretty much even though I would probably on a neutral field probably think Ohio State was slightly better. I think you get games like this when you play musical chairs with your quarterback. The Ohio State fans last year did not like Kyle McCord. They were ready they threw him. He's not good. Why is he still on the team? He needs to go. And I thought the guy was pretty good. He was like 67% completion. He threw 24 touchdowns, eight picks. Now, Will Howard, the transfer in from Kansas State, statistically a little bit better. He's 74% completion percentage, 9.9 yards per pass attempt. But the strength of schedule is still sort of bread and butter for him. The issue with playing those musical chairs is, McCord, who's now at Syracuse, doesn't have the talent around him. That was his first year playing. And I always think that going into your second year in a system as a quarterback is always the year to watch for a quarterback to really take that next step. And when he's gone and you're bringing in a new guy, it's going to take some time for Will Howard to kind of learn the system. Even though he's experienced, he's got to learn the system. He's got to get in the flow. He's got to, figure out how Ryan Day structures this team a little bit differently. And I don't think it's really connected for Ohio State right now. They're not generating enough They do generate explosive. When you're able to generate explosive plays, like I said, you're only one or two plays away from potentially scoring, which is what Ohio State is. And Nebraska's defense. I mean, Nebraska was winning this game 17-14. I was like, oh gosh, like this, they're about to win this game. It's about a major upset. But Ohio State just was not able to generate a lot of offense in this game, which is surprising given what we saw Indiana do to the same Nebraska team.
Dude, I mean, you look at yeah, just the like you said, the explosiveness was not there. And Nebraska was out physical. They out physical Ohio State on the line, man. They were
Yeah.
getting to Will Howard. They were forcing, a lot of not great throws and bro, those big corn fed. Guys on that line, bro. What was his name? Number 9 for Nebraska. It's just he looks like Brock Lesnar. It's like he's just an absolute unit. And he had some big boys up there, and they were getting in that backfield. They were stopping the run. They were blowing plays up. And if you're Ohio State, man, I know they have some injuries on their offensive line, but if you're Ohio State, you gotta get ready because they expect Ryan Day to win the national championship this year. There's no other,
Yes.
nothing else. They can make
nothing else.
Nothing
Right.
else. Exactly. So, and then he's on the hot seat. So this is not a team that's going to win the national championship, at least with the new playoff where you're playing like 5 games before you get to the national championship. It's unbelievable. You know what I mean? If you're in round 1, like if you don't win the conference championship, you got to play like 4 or 5 games. It's unreal. This playoff is crazy. So, and I know that because I play the college football game, and it's like you play, you make it to the playoff, you're like yay, but you still have like a third of the season left. And then you got to go and play another 5 games. And you're like, dude, I want to simulate these games because I don't want to play it. You spend all the time on the season. You have a whole nother mini season in front of you. So it's just we'll see, man. They need to get healthy. I do know that. They're missing some guys, but still, man, good game by Nebraska. Threw it away, typical Nebraska. You know what I mean? Threw a pick late. Just very typical Nebraska on their end.
Yeah.
But yeah, really fun game to watch, man. And we both picked Ohio State to cover, so that sucks. Not fun. Which was, by the way, the spread was 20, negative 20 and a half. So it was a 20 and a half favored
Okay.
by Ohio State, and we picked Ohio State to cover that. So that didn't end well for us. Next game we had was Oklahoma at Ole Miss. Ole Miss favored by 18 and a half. We both had Ole Miss covering, and they did not. Ole Miss only wins 26-14 there in the second half. Now, this was a game that was very close. Halftime, Oklahoma was actually winning. It was 14-10, and they were playing good, man. Jackson Arnold coming back obviously has helped them a little bit. He played pretty well in this game. Just looked a little more comfortable in the backfield than the freshman that he got replaced with, obviously, in the I believe it was Texas game, I think, or it was before that. I can't remember who they were playing, but I know they replaced him. And yeah, just actually generated some offense there. Ole Miss was not able to. I'm not a fan of Jackson Dart. Now, he did really pick it up in that second half and made some really good throws, but his consistency as a quarterback is causing Ole Miss a lot of issues. I know he had a 73% completion percentage and 311 yards. Really came from that third quarter, though. But yeah, he's a guy who just... they're not going to do anything this year because that consistency from that offense is not there, which is really weird to see out of a Lane Kiffin offense. Just really interesting stuff. But they were not really able to run the ball in this game, Ole Miss, which is what obviously really hurt them. They really had to rely on the passing, which is why Oklahoma really limited them in that first half. But second half, like I said, Ole Miss comes out, scores 16 points, and just shuts out Oklahoma. Plays more aggressive, and Oklahoma was just, they also turned away from the run game a little bit, which was interesting, but, just kind of got pushed out of that game. Ole Miss just gained a lot of momentum with those sexy new helmets that they wore. But yeah, good game by Ole Miss. We both picked Ole Miss to cover, and that did not obviously happen, but what do you think about the game?
Yeah. I always wonder because Oklahoma is they're a very talented team. So anytime you have a team that is really, really talented, like they've got a lot of talent on the team. They lost like their top five wide receivers to injury,
It's crazy.
which is wild. So that definitely affects your ability, your continuity and all that, to be able to score. But you get some of these games where one game you look great, and then the next game you look terrible. This game you look great. Um, Ole Miss, Jackson Dart doesn't really have any Blitnikoff elite wide receivers that he can throw the football to. So that's one primary issue with their team. They are the Lane Kiffin, believe it or not, tries to be really, really balanced. At 31 rushes, 30 passes, but on the rushes, they had 69 yards rushing against Oklahoma. And anytime Ole Miss cannot run the football, it's going to be a close game by the nature of how they run the ball. They don't really have this NFL offense with Lane Kiffin where Jackson Dart can just get out there and Tom Brady it, right?
Yeah.
All his passes are based on their ability to get more than 1 yard rushing when they run the ball. So Oklahoma did a great job with that game plan, stopping the run and then just seeing what Jackson Dart can do down the field, which was enough to score more points than Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, uh, to your point, Jackson Arnold coming in, uh, he, not a terrible game by him, but the difference was, the net -1 turnovers for Oklahoma in this game, and their inability to kind of just capitalize off the opportunities that they were given in the red zone. So yeah, Ole Miss.
Yeah, and those turnovers have hurt Oklahoma all year. You know what I mean? It's just been one of those things that they just have not been able to get past. And yeah, the two fumbles in this game, not what you want to see from Oklahoma. Next game we have Notre Dame versus Navy. Undefeated Navy, or was undefeated Navy, go in and just get absolutely smacked by Notre Dame, number 12 Notre Dame, 51-14. This was never even really a game. Right away, 14-0. Notre Dame got up on Ole Miss or on Navy. Navy, man, the game of this, or the story of this game, was the amount of turnovers that Navy had. So many fumbles. It was terrible. Interception as well. But just kept fumbling the ball, man, and Notre Dame taking advantage of these opportunities. There was a point where Navy was come back. I think it was like 14-7. I was like, oh, it's happening. And then Notre Dame scores right back. And then, you see just all the energy, leave the Navy sideline. So, yeah, just not really much to talk about in this game. It's just Notre Dame being Notre Dame. Played well. Riley Leonard, using his legs like always, and Jeremiah Love going off, and them just, being very, very balanced. Nothing new.
Yeah, and we said it, I think, before the game. Anytime you play these triple option teams, are they going to fumble the ball?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is the key to anytime you play those teams. And 5 fumbles, like, are you kidding me? So yeah, the score was indicative of what happened in this game.
Exactly. There we go. By the way, you picked Navy to cover the 14 spread. I did not. So, I don't blame you, though. I was like, man, you actually might be right. And then that was obviously kind of went to hell there. But then you have the next game, which is Mizzou at Alabama. Bama favored by 13.5. Bama wins this game 34-0. Absolute dominant performance by this Alabama team. Brady Cook goes out pretty early on in this game with an injury. Came back, didn't have any jersey on or anything. Was gone for the rest of the game. Drew Pine comes in, the old Notre Dame quarterback comes in and just plays absolutely just garbage. 6 of 12, 50% completion percentage, 42 yards, and 3 interceptions. And then they just could not run the ball. Literally had like all negative rushing yards for a lot of their guys, except for Marcus Carroll. He had a good game. But other than that, though, just was not looking pretty for this Missouri offense. But then you got Alabama's offense. You know, Jalen Milroe had a decent game. He doesn't really. It's really weird, man. You look at Jalen Milroe, just I don't know. You know, he looks amazing in that Georgia game. Looks like one of the best athletes in college football. Almost becomes a Heisman frontrunner. And even though he played well in this game, just doesn't look as polished as he did in that. It's really weird. You know, like he gets the job done, but I don't know, man. Just something's off about his style of play right now. And I don't know if it's just because, you know, I don't know. I just feel like they need to run him more. I feel like that's what it is. Like Jalen Milroe, I saw he had a huge rush in this game. I watched that part live, and I was like, okay, so you're actually running him. That's cool. You know, because Missouri did keep it close for a little bit, you know, especially in the first, second quarter, but then Alabama started running away with it. It was 6-0 for a long time, but then guess what? Then they had a huge run with Jalen Milroe, and then they, you know, were able to get a touchdown. So that's my thing is why you're not using Jalen Milroe's legs more, I don't know. You know what I mean? That man can outrun and juke anyone out on the field. Why you're not doing that more, I don't know. He's not a pure pocket passer. You know that. You know, I mean, DJ Lagway is a more polished passer. You know what I'm saying? So why you're trying to make him step back there, I don't know. Really weird, but good. Still, you know, great game by Alabama. Got the job done, but, you know, obviously Missouri losing Brady Cook that early on was not great.
Yeah, that was the key. Now, I mean, Brady Cook is your entire chance to win any of these games if you're Missouri. You know, you can't turn the ball over in a game like this. You can't have 72 yards passing to beat Alabama.
Yeah.
You know, that's just not gonna cut it. And when you think about Jalen Milroe, what you said, you know, the interesting thing is, you know, after they got up 28-0 on Georgia, it's been kind of the second half adjustments that Georgia made to force Alabama to have Jalen Milroe be a decision maker. Everybody has just started to do that to Alabama. And to your point, DeBoer hasn't really just said, okay, look, I'm just going to let Jalen Milroe be who he is and get out here and ball and run. And we're going to have design runs. We're going to roll the pocket. Snapping the ball to him and just making him make decisions down the field that ain't it. So, yeah. But hey, when you have a backup quarterback in there that can't really throw the ball, you're going to win most of these games. But Alabama's they still got a little bit of a difficult schedule coming up here. So we'll see if they can make some adjustments.
All of Alabama's wins have been kind of fluky. Literally every single one. Like it's one of the weirdest things ever. And they get lucky again with another starting quarterback going down. So interesting stuff from Alabama. Next game we have, you picked Missouri to cover. I picked Alabama to cover. Next game we have is Illinois at Oregon. Oregon favored by 21.5. Man, we should have listened. Oregon wins 38-9. Absolute dominant performance by Oregon. There was never a shot in this game from Illinois. I mean, right away, dude, Oregon comes out just going crazy, scoring like 35 in this first half to Illinois' 3. The game just fell apart. I mean, turnover central, man. Luke Altmaier had one of his worst games of the season with his 2 interceptions. Just not pretty from Illinois. Illinois was able to run the ball a little bit, but Oregon, man, I mean, just they're such I love watching them play. I haven't been able to watch them too much this season, but they're a very polished team, and they take advantage of opportunities. You know what I'm saying? And that's the sign of a great football team is they when interception happens or whatever, then they get points. You know what I mean? It's not a interception, then the drive goes out. They force the ball down the field. They keep playing aggressive, and honestly, this was just a representation of a better football team in Oregon. You know what I mean? and they took off their foot off the gas in the second half, which is why they only scored 3. Illinois didn't do anything crazy, so nothing wild there. But yeah, Illinois' offense could just not get anything going, which is crazy because they've been a hard-nosed football team. So good job by Oregon here, good win.
Yeah, excellent point. I mean, here's an interesting stat, and this is why this game got out of hand at the end of the day. Oregon's roster has 56 blue chip recruits, so 4 and 5-star players. That makes them the 6th best roster in the country. Illinois has 8 blue chip players on their entire roster, making them the 63rd most talented roster in the country. So at the end of the day, Dan Lanning just said, you know what? This is a game where we're going to let Dylan Gabriel, our wide receivers, and our spread offense be impossible for a team with this level of talent on the defensive side to have any shot at beating us. And that's the whole thing about defense. The rules have changed so much where teams are it's favoring the offense. The teams are going to score more. The only chance that you've got on defense is if you've got more athletes on your defense than the other team's offense. Like if you can get out there and stop make a tackle in an open field. Oregon said, look, we got a first team, we got a 2 deep, we got a 3 deep. Because a first team is 22 players. They got 3 deep before Illinois can even go half of a team with blue chip players. So they were just like, spread it, get it out there. Illinois ain't going to stop us. And then once the game gets out of hand, Illinois, the only thing they can do is try to throw the ball. So their balanced attack gets thrown completely out the window. And now they got to throw the ball, and now you start throwing interceptions, which I think they threw a costly one that Oregon just was like, "Oh, thank you, touchdown the other way."
Yeah.
So that's how that game got out of hand. So we probably should have listened to the prognosticators.
I just wanted an upset, man. That's it. So yeah, we're both wrong there. Next one we have is Texas favored by 19.5 at Vanderbilt. You picked Vandy to cover. I picked Texas to cover. Texas wins 27-24. Close game here. Man, I thought this would be a bounce back game for Texas. You know what I'm saying? I thought, okay, like they're ready to come in here and fight. They have Florida next. Like they're gonna want to come in here. They're not gonna overlook Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt has played very good football this year. They're not a fluke team. This is a good football team who just happened to lose against Georgia State. But they're a good football team. And, just it's pretty much a home game for Texas. You look at the crowd, bro. It was like all orange. But yeah, Quinn Ewers comes in this game, plays decent at some points, but then throws 2 picks in this game. Vanderbilt's defense played really, really well in that second half. Really good job by them. A lot of sacks. Like this defensive line for Vanderbilt was unbelievable, man. They got so much pressure on this Georgia offensive line, it's Texas offensive line, which is unbelievable because they have blue chip guys all over the place, and these are big boys. Like Josh Pate brought up a good point when he said this. If you look at Texas's offensive line versus like Georgia's offensive line and like these other big boys, like you can't really tell the difference. These are big 4 or 5-star guys. And Vanderbilt was able to come in here and get consistent pressure on Quinn Ewers, not make him comfortable in the pocket. They gave their offense plenty of chances to win this game and to get back into it because it was kind of getting away there for a little bit. I mean, what a good game by this Vanderbilt defense, and they're scary as hell, man. They're no joke, bro. And forced Quinn Ewers to make some poor decisions. So yeah, man, great game by Vandy. When it comes to Vanderbilt's offense, because the defense is what I was most impressed with. When it comes to Vanderbilt's offense, Diego Pavia, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 1 interception was just kind of a fluke one. But yeah, played a pretty good game. He's just so small. You know what I mean? It's hard for him to kind of look over. The line But yeah, played pretty well in this game. Kind of had to do everything himself because he didn't have a lot of help in the run game. So just they were put in a lot of good situations by their defense. But they fought hard, man. But of course, when it mattered, they were not able to go down the field, of course, which makes sense, man. I keep saying Georgia. This Texas defense is they're a good defense, man, and so it makes sense. I think there's just an obvious talent difference there with the Vanderbilt offense versus the Texas defense. But just a really, really good game by this Vanderbilt defense, man. Keeping it was crazy to watch, man. Like they were going neck and neck with this offensive line from Texas. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. Vanderbilt is just a well coached team. They do not rely on their talent. And the little talent that they do have relative to the other teams they're playing in the SEC, they're able to, go toe to toe. The difference, in this game was just one more turnover for Vanderbilt in the game than Texas. And Pavia did not have as efficient of a game.
Mm.
2 interceptions to 2 touchdowns in the game. For Vanderbilt to be successful, when you look at the QBR for Pavia, that's got to be better than the quarterback that they're playing. He was a little bit worse in this game than Ewers. And Vanderbilt's, like you said, holding Texas at 394 total yards is a total win for them, which is incredible. And 106 yards rushing. But Texas has not really been a great running team so far the last few games. And Vanderbilt, and that's the thing. If you're not a good running team, don't be a good running team against us, and that's what Vanderbilt
Yeah.
was able to hold down and keep the game close. So
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with this team. Their coach, let's
Clark
see what he
Lee.
can do. Clark Lee, I mean, they play Auburn next week. Let's see if they can wheel off a couple more wins. I think if they can get 2 more wins, he's guaranteed coach of the year in the SEC, because I really don't, other than him and Elko at A&M, man, that'll be a toss up depending on how Elko finishes the year.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember when Clark Lee came in and he got appointed as the coach and he had his press conference. He's like, "We're here to win an SEC championship." He's like, "We're going to win a national title here at Vanderbilt." And everyone was laughing at him, you know what I mean? But this dude just went in, beat Bama, almost beat Texas. Two great football teams. So yeah, it's really funny to see. And yeah, he probably won't be at Vanderbilt next year. Someone's definitely going to pick him up, whoever it will be. But yeah, great game. Like you said, really well coached. Vanderbilt, I think, only has 3 losses, right? 3, I think.
Yeah, they're 5-3.
They should be 6-2 because they lost against Georgia State. That's crazy to think about. They should still be ranked at 6-2. Unbelievable. Definitely had a chance to be a little playoff sleeper. If they would have beat Georgia State and then would have gone crazy, but.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, that Georgia State game was a complete meltdown. But at Auburn, South Carolina at home, at LSU, Tennessee at home, they got to win one of those games to get to a bowl. Vandy, can you do it, Vandy?
Oh, they can. They can definitely do it, baby. Yeah, they can. No, that's great. Good for them, man. Love seeing Vanderbilt do some things because they're not playing us, so I'm not scared. All right, next game we have is going to be BYU favored by 2.5 at UCF. We both were like, that line is insane. Give me BYU all day. And that's exactly what happened. BYU gets the dub 37-24 at UCF. UCF scored 2 garbage time touchdowns late in the fourth quarter. So really, they weren't able to do a single thing. It should have been, 37-10, honestly, in this game. But yeah, great game by BYU. BYU did what they usually do. Their quarterback, I don't want to try to pronounce his name. Redslaff, got himself 288 passing yards, QBR of 135, almost 136. Also threw no interceptions, which is always nice to see. They were able to run the football, which is obviously a big part of their offense. UCF, on the other hand, obviously KJ Jefferson's not here, so they got Ja'Cory Brown in there, and this guy is not a good quarterback. Under 50% completion percentage, 92 yards, 2 interceptions, which was huge in this game. One of those games, man, for UCF where it kind of started to fall apart. RJ Harvey did have a decent game. Did kind of carry this UCF offense. Had a really nice touchdown there late in this game. But overall, man, BYU went in here and dominated. I mean, it was the score. They were beating them so bad before that fourth quarter. It was insane. Just a really, really good game by BYU, and showed why they should be in the top 10. So good game by them.
Yeah, I have several UCF friends, and I think they've just kind of, the season's over. But Twitter was really fire Gus Malzahn. I think they started to it was 34-10, and they started to chant fire Gus Malzahn. So I'm kind of like, oh man, everyone wants to get fired. Like, this is going to be a crazy year. But yeah, BYU, this was a bad matchup against UCF. I don't know. A lot of the UCF fans really like the quarterback change going, by taking out KJ Jefferson. I kind of have looked at the alternatives, and I personally would have continued to play KJ Jefferson.
Yeah.
And just said, hey, power run. We're going to power run you and go throw deep. Like, we're going to have 2 plays.
I mean, look at him in Arkansas. He was a big time playmaker at Arkansas. It's like there's something going on here at UCF, and so it's not a him problem, I don't think.
Correct. It's some sort of schematic scheme that Gus Malzahn is putting together that he is now not confident that KJ Jefferson can run that scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of sucks, because I mean, why would you transfer out to go to a program that you think that you could start and have a really great season? Yeah. But this is just one of those the downsides of the transfer portal. But yeah, UCF, welcome to big boy college football. This is now their I believe this is their 5th loss in a row, and their next 4 games, it's going to be difficult to find a win in the next 4 games. They got to play the 2 teams from Arizona State. They got to go to West Virginia, and then they got to play Utah. So,
God, the amount of flying, and that's insane, bro.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're on the West Coast. They might as well stay out here with me, and then go to West Virginia.
Yep.
It's going to be a tough season in the Big 12 for them this year.
Yeah, no, they got off to such a hot start. People were saying rank them. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then it just all kind of fell apart. Had a really good win against TCU. And then, and ever since then, they've been struggling. So, feel bad for them, I guess. Next one we have is Michigan State at Michigan. By the way, we both picked BYU, but Michigan State at Michigan. We both picked Michigan to cover here. They were favored by 6.5 points. And Michigan covers with 7 points. Barely covers there for us. Yes, sir. So both get a win there. This was a really fun game to watch. The game, look, I mean, the game, I think the score shows it was a little bit closer than what it really was. Michigan kind of dominated this game. I watched a little bit of it. This Michigan State offense just could not get anything going. Got a score there late to make it a 1-possession game, but they had nothing going for them. Nate Carter, one of my favorite running backs in college football. I really like this guy. 19 attempts on 118 yards, 6 yards a carry. So they were able to rely on the run a little bit there. but it was just really on key downs. You know what I mean? Not being able to get the ball down the field. This Michigan defense, even though Michigan's not the Michigan we saw last year, still got a lot of good playmakers there. You know what I mean? Can stuff the run. Can play good in the secondary. They're just a good defense, and when you got a young guy like Aiden Childs back there, that can be effective, and he played a good game. It was just nothing. There wasn't a spark. You know what I'm saying? Which was it was more of the consistency from the offense of Michigan State. Now the offense from Michigan, you have Davis Warren in there. I guess they just fully left Orgy, behind. So you got Davis Warren that played in this game. 13 of 19, 123 passing yards. That's something we've seen in Michigan this year is they cannot throw the ball to save their life. I mean, you look at the stats on this game. Michigan was only able to have 265 yards of total offense. With 146 passing yards and 119 rushing yards. So you got Michigan State who had almost 100 more yards on offense than Michigan, but obviously a key turnover there for Michigan to get on Michigan State. And, like I said, the game was a lot closer. The score shows the game being a lot closer than what it really was, but just a good win by Michigan.
Solid win by Michigan against a team that, if this was in East Lansing, I probably would not have. Michigan probably would still been favored, but I probably would have went with Michigan State. Mm-hmm. It was interesting that Jonathan Smith, who's the head coach of Michigan State, I was kind of surprised he went over there from Oregon State to be the head coach. He was a former quarterback, relatively young. This is year one, so let's see what or is this year two for him?
Year one, I believe, because the Pac-12 is done now. So yeah, I think it's
year
one.
Yeah. So year one had a pretty decent run at Oregon State, but it wasn't. And he had DJU last year, so I was kind of surprised to see him make this move to Michigan State. To be honest with you, but this was a game where Michigan is, if you're looking at last year's Michigan team and you're like, okay, wow, they had the best defense in the country and they had kind of a locomotive style offense. They're probably the same team, except I would probably say if last year was 10 out of 10, they're probably like a 5.9 out of 10. So this is probably a team that will likely be close to 500 by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And when you look at, what it takes to be better than 500 in the Big Ten, they really don't have that. Their next game is this week against Oregon. So we'll see what happens. And they got to play Indiana. Then they got to play, obviously, in the year with Ohio State. So we'll see where they can finish. But evenly matched game, home crowd team comes out on top.
There you go. Love that. We both picked Michigan to cover. They did. Next, we have Penn State favored by 7.5 at Wisconsin, which was a really, really fun game. We both picked Wisconsin to cover, and they didn't. We were both wrong there. Wisconsin loses 28-13. A game that, once again, was very, very close and then just started to pull away late, man. Drew Aller just started connecting there late. The offense just kind of started to spark a little bit with Katron Allen in the backfield and Singleton having some good runs, man. I hate this for Wisconsin because, bro, the Wisconsin field was on fire, man. The environment was on fire. The fans were in it. You could feel it through the screen. Like I said, it was very close. It was very, very close going into that fourth quarter. I believe Wisconsin was barely down at that point. And they were both evenly matched. And just Penn State comes out, man. Like I said, just everything starts clicking. Wisconsin, just struggling, man. Bad interception there late. Just it's just one of those games where you kind of had it in the bag. But I think Penn State's, blue chips, the talent of Penn State started to pull away, man. I was really pulling for Wisconsin in this game, but like I said, this Penn State offense just started to figure out stuff, and Wisconsin, it sucked because Wisconsin had so many chances here late in this game to get a touchdown and to get points on the board. They just couldn't do it, and that's what really sucked. They had this defense was stopping Penn State, and then they just couldn't take advantage of the opportunities, which really sucked there late for Wisconsin. So Penn State gets the win.
Yeah, I was really, I picked Wisconsin in an upset, very not confident because this is typically the game that James Franklin wins. Any team not named Ohio State or Michigan, okay, James Franklin usually can beat them. So I'm kind of okay, we should probably pick Penn State, but Wisconsin's on a roll. Their defense is playing good. Luke Fickell, he can do something. Give us a home upset because college football is crazy this year.
Yep.
And then what does he do? Luke Fickell, because when I turned this game on, I was like, okay, it was halftime. It was like 10-7. I was like, okay, let me watch a little bit because I picked Wisconsin. Luke Fickell, this had to be the worst game plan I had ever seen. First of all, Logan, every time you turn around and hand the ball off, if you get immediately tackled in the backfield, like literally every single time you hand the ball off, would you continue to proceed to just, hike, hand off? And it's the slowest handoff anyone's ever seen. Mm-hmm. By the time they hand the ball off, Penn State's standing there like, are you done handing the ball off now? Okay, we could tackle you. I'm like, throw the ball. And then when they started to throw like short screen passes, they had success. But Luke Fickell continued to run the ball. Mm-hmm. They were wasted plays. You can't run the ball on Penn State. And the pick six, because this game was 10-7, and Wisconsin was stopping them. They got the ball back, and they had a pick six where Penn State was just standing right there and ran it in. And I was kind of like, game over, because Luke Fickell has no answer except run the ball for a negative gain every time you run the ball.
It just sucks because that defense kept him in the game, man. Like I was really hoping they were going to do something, bro. And even there late, they were still in it. And this is all on offense, man. And that sucks to see for Wisconsin, bro. I hate it. Yeah, I hate it. We both picked Wisconsin to cover. That did not happen. Next, we have LSU at Texas A&M. Big time game last night, bro. This game was actually crazy. Seeing Brian Kelly just go crazy on the sideline was amazing. Dude, Kyle Field was rocking. It was rocking. The third largest ever crowd at Kyle Field. I mean, like 109,000, something stupid. And it was just going crazy. You could barely hear Kirk Herbstreit through the screen. It was so loud. Texas A&M gets the win, favored by 3, and they get the win 38-23 over LSU. You picked LSU to cover. I did not. I didn't trust Brian Kelly. I'm glad I didn't because it was a typical Brian Kelly thing, man. Look, the one thing that hurt LSU in this game is they looked like the better football team. You could just tell they're better, well-rounded. It's just the mistakes. The interceptions. It was just so much. I believe they had a couple fumbles too, if I'm not mistaken, in this game. Let me look quick. I guess not. I thought I remember fumbles, but there was just so many little mistakes in this game that was hurting LSU, man. Drop passes, bad throws. And, it was one of those things, man, where Texas A&M was then taking advantage of those opportunities, especially in the second half, man. Everything started falling apart for LSU. But it just, from watching this game, LSU looked like the better football team. And also, too, Marcel Reed comes in for Texas A&M, and they cannot stop him. I don't know how many, let me see how many yards he had at the end of the game. Marcel Reed, 62 yards rushing with a long of 20. It's like he was just getting yards every single time on these stupid read options. He wouldn't even make the right decision. That's what was funny. He would do a read option. There'd be a guy in his face. He would keep it and then juke him out and then get yards. Like, they could not stop him at all. We couldn't stop him either. But yeah, he's so fast, dude. And that's what happened late in that game, with Marcel Reed coming in, because Connor Wigman obviously goes out. and Marcel, they just run the ball. And if you're LSU, Texas A&M, 134 passing yards. 134 passing yards because you can't, that's unbelievable. LSU only 24 rushing yards. They could not rush the ball at all in this game, and they tried. They tried, dude. They ran the ball 18 times in this game, and they get that. I mean, just absolute, just all over the place. Really fun game to watch, and seeing LSU just run away with the game with Marcel Reed and his legs there late was very crazy.
Yeah, so man, you called this game perfectly because there was, according to ESPN Analytics, 12 minutes to go, 13 minutes to go. I'm checking my phone, is 83% probability LSU wins. You're up 17-7. I'm kind of like, okay, just don't mess it up. And just like James Franklin can beat everyone except for Ohio State and Michigan, I'm assuming Brian Kelly can beat everyone except for, like, even though I think didn't they beat Alabama last year? And so I'm like, okay, Texas A&M is not in this category, blah, 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 blah. Garrett Nussmeier started looking like his dad's offense that when his dad was our OC. I don't know if you remember.
I remember that. I remember that.
Nussmeier, and I had a really bad nickname, I'm not going to say it, had some of the worst plays. And I'm like, are you calling your dad and asking him for play calls in the second half? Because to your point, a total and utter implosion from Garrett Nussmeier throwing the football. I'm just like, what are you doing? Then you got the wild card with Marcel Reed coming into the game, who had a 394 rating. He was 2 out of 2, 70 yards, ran the ball like Michael Vick. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, LSU. Last year, you had the worst defense in LSU history. And in the second half of this game, you went right back to that. After having a decent season, you were completely incapable of making any adjustments. And the power of the Texas A&M run game at the line of scrimmage, combined with the dynamic of having Marcel Reed snap, oh, nobody's open, psych, I wasn't going to throw it anyway, run for 20 yards. LSU just forgot. I'm just like, weren't y'all practicing against Jaden Daniels all last year? Shouldn't you have a defensive scheme that you could just draw up for a quarterback that just only runs?
There's nothing.
Apparently not.
Apparently
not.
No,
apparently not.
There's no spy. They made zero. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
And so Nussmeier, he throws for 400 yards, but 25 out of 50% completion. I think he threw 3 picks in the game, and they were all very, very costly. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, Brian Kelly, I'm going to smack the table just like he did in his press conference and be like, you keep doing the same thing.
The same thing. Yeah.
The same thing. Aneurysm. Yep. I'm like, what are you doing? But you got to give it to Elko and this Texas A&M team at the line of scrimmage. They can dominate you. They can be very, very overwhelming. And A&M is pretty much gonna be a team that is gonna have a very good chance at making the SEC championship game now, because when you look at their remaining schedule, South Carolina, New Mexico State, which is basically like we don't even need to practice, at Auburn, might be tough. And then finally, they are bringing back the Texas A&M rivalry. That's going to be an incredible game. That's it. That's how we wrap up the season.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. All the other ones are definitely winnable. South Carolina is going to be interesting, but every other game is pretty winnable. Texas is going to be unbelievable. That's going to be God. Is that at Kyle Field or is it in Austin?
It's in Kyle Field.
Ooh, that's huge. Yeah, that is amazing. Going to be a big game because Texas needs to win that one. They have to win that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a really fun one. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Texas A&M looking like one of the best teams in the country. Looking like they just have so many weapons. If they had a competent passing quarterback, they would be scary. Connor Wigman, he's not consistent enough. If they had an actual passing quarterback, oh my God. That's the one thing hurting them this year. That's why I don't think they're going to go all the way. But yeah, man, like you said, this is what happens when you give one of the most talented teams in the country a good head coach. When you give them a good head coach, Mike Elko, a guy that knows fundamentals, because people thought he's going to have to rebuild, but you don't have to rebuild when you already have a roster that's unbelievable. You got playmakers everywhere. And, what he did at Duke, he comes in here, does the same exact thing, but with more talent, and he starts winning games. So, definitely up for Coach of the Year with Clark Lee. So, really good job by Mike Elko in this game. Huge game. And 100%. Brian Kelly, if you're an LSU fan, just saying, you can't win big games. It's pretty kind of interesting to look at. But yeah, so those were our picks from this past week. I go 7-4. EJ goes 5-6. So not too far off with our predictions there. We're gonna keep track of this. We're gonna keep adding to it and see whoever has the most at the end of the year. So that's gonna be fun. Cool. So for week 10 of college football, we have the little slate here of 10 games. I might have done 11 too, because there were some cool ones that I wanted to kind of talk about. So we talked about this earlier, EJ. There's not a lot of actually, let me go back to the visuals, and then I'm gonna open this up. And you made that really cool slide for me that shows all the picks. Sweet. But yeah, so as you guys can see, we have around 10, 11 games here for you guys. It's not like one of those slates that you look at and you're like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Huge games. But there are some really interesting matchups that, with some really cool spreads here. And I feel like this is a weekend that could be all about trap games, you know what I'm saying? And really catch some people by surprise. So let's see what we got here. We're starting off with Ohio State favored by 4 at Penn State.
Ooh.
EJ, you go first here. How are you feeling with this one?
Oh, lordy. This is the biggest game of the week. I think from game day, I'd be shocked if game day is not in Happy Valley.
Oh, they're there. They announced.
Oh, okay, they're there. Okay, great. Yeah, this is the biggest game. This is James Franklin. Can I send you a Morse code? This is your chance, my friend. This is your chance. Clark Lee might be the next James Franklin. You never know. He might get a big job like this.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Ohio State is favored by 4. The question is, can Penn State's defense continue to stop the run like they've been doing? They've been just an incredible front seven. Can they contain Will Howard getting outside the pocket and throwing the football? If they can do that, that's the key to the game to me. And I think Penn State, I'm going to pick Penn State in the upset, which means, does that mean I pick them to cover? Yeah, because Ohio Ohio State's favored by 4. That's a big time pick. On paper, Penn State should win this football game. They have home field advantage. They had the front seven. The Ohio State offense is beat up, especially on the offensive line, and they're facing this front seven. Howard has been playing super clean. The play calling's been very conservative. But can James Franklin get over that hump? Ugh. And can Ryan Day live up to the expectations and make the natty? If they lose this game, he can. Well, no, I don't know. I don't know, man. This is a big game for Ohio State. But 4 though, 4 is like such a bad number, because I could see them winning by 3. I could see 4 points. I'll take Ohio State to cover. I just, like I said, on paper, man, I like your pick a lot more. It just makes more sense. And it's at Penn State.
but just James Franklin hasn't showed me anything. Not a single reason for me to, you know what I mean, trust him with that. So that's why I'm gonna go with that. But nice pick though.
Wait, can I change my pick?
Yeah.
No, forget it. Okay, I'll go with Pitt State. I'm like,
Yeah. Go
I
for it.
believe in
Go
you,
for
James
it.
Franklin. Please don't steer me wrong here, buddy.
Listen, statistically, your pick is the right one. Next one we have is Pittsburgh at SMU, the Fighting Ponies, who are favored by 6.5 points. Listen, Pittsburgh, a team that I think they're undefeated still, playing really, really good football, getting wins. Just had a dominant win over who do they just play? Played a phenomenal game. Let me see. Pitt football. Had a really good game against Syracuse. You know what I mean?
Oh,
You have
yeah.
Kyle McCord
Yeah.
at quarterback throwing 5 interceptions in that game. I watched a little bit of that. He threw the ball 64 times in that game. It was unbelievable. What a good fight by this Pittsburgh defense. Got multiple sacks in that game. Dude, this is a good team. Pittsburgh is a good football team. You look at their other teams that they've played, they found ways to win. Which, by the way, FYI, they play Clemson in 2 weeks, so keep an eye out for that game. That's going to be a fun one. I think it's at Pittsburgh as well, so be ready for that. But yeah, I mean, just SMU's a good football team, though. You know, they had the backup quarterback come in, not what was his name? The guy they expected was Stone. That was the guy that came into this season that they expected to play. But now you have this young guy kind of coming in here and playing some good football for them. Kevin Jennings got a really good win last night, an overtime against Duke, which was a really, really good game, by the way. They get the W there. You know, he did throw 3 interceptions in this game, but still, SMU though very explosive with their offense, right? I mean, in this game they had an 81-yard bomb down the field, so you know they are very explosive with their offense. But I really, really like this Pitt team, and I'm really hoping they're undefeated when they play Clemson because I think that'd be a really good game. So statistically, I should probably go SMU here to probably win by a touchdown. But you know what? I think Pitt will cover. I think Pitt will cover, and even if they don't win, I think they'll keep it close.
Wow. Okay. So here's an interesting stat on this game very quickly. SMU is like the high flying offense, right? Is what we think. But SMU runs the ball 51% of the time and throws it only 49% of the time. Whereas Pittsburgh throws it 65% of the time. So from a balance standpoint, SMU, I think, is a little bit more balanced. I think for Pitt to win this game, they're going to have to force some turnovers, which I think is a little bit too risky for a team that's as balanced as them. I think Pitt is probably the team that's probably likely to turn it over a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So give me the Mustangs.
I love that. That's a great pick. That's a great pick. That's a really, really good pick. We're opposites. 2 in. We're opposites.
Oh my God, I gotta make a comeback on you. You're 2 games
That's
up.
true. That's true. This is crazy. This would be a fun week. Next one we have Duke at Miami. Miami favored by 20.5 points. Hugely favored in this game. Yeah, man. Look, I'll let you pick this one. Go for it.
So Miami's favored by 20.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
They are one of the better passer rating type teams, whereas Duke is just speaking of SMU, they just played SMU and did they defeat SMU?
No. SMU beat them in overtime.
Okay, SMU beat them over in 28-27.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great game.
Great game.
I think Miami will win this game in miraculous fashion. I think this will be another barn burner type game. But I do not think they will beat Duke by 21 points. So I'm going to pick Duke to cover. And the key, can Duke completely take away the Miami running attack and force it to be a Cam Ward show. Which I think if they did that, Cam Ward will still be able to win the game.
Mhm.
But Duke, it will give Duke a better chance. If Duke can't stop the run, that's how this game gets to a 21-point spread.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think Duke will cover. But because you look at Miami, man, I mean, how many games have they absolutely dominated in? I mean, at least when it comes to points wise, you know what I'm saying? Like, think about it.
The
Really
first
close
few, the
game,
first few, the
first
first few
few,
games.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then after that, I mean, California, Virginia Tech, Louisville. They beat Florida State really good last night, but they're also Florida State. Like, these three ACC games here have been pretty interesting, and they've gotten saved by the refs in pretty much all three of them. And now you're coming into a really tough Duke team who's pretty feisty. A Duke team who got some really good wins over Florida State, North Carolina, and really
Yep.
fought right here with SMU, which is a good team. So, the thing is they have not played well on the road. So, that's just something to kind of think about. Um, or at least they look a little bit more shaky on the road. Like you said, can you stop the run game? Can you force Cam Ward to play hero ball, which he has done really well this season but he's gotten lucky a few times late, and that's what's happened in all those other games, like you were talking about. The thing is, Martinez is going to run the ball. Martinez is going to get yards, but can you limit the explosive plays?
Yep.
And if you can limit Miami's explosive plays, Duke can play time of possession. They can play that game. You know what I'm saying? They're that kind of like hard nosed, Manny Diaz, type of football. Defensive coordinator, right? So he likes to play those time of possession games, and I think this can be one. And because of that, I think Duke's going to cover. So I'm with you there, man. Next game we have is going to be Ole Miss favored by 9.5 at Arkansas.
Ooh.
This is going to be a really, really fun game here. Yeah, really, really fun game. I'll go first with this one. Ole Miss, hold up, let me see something real quick. Yeah, Ole Miss favored by 9.5. Look, man, I've watched more Ole Miss this year than Arkansas. Ole Miss is just one of those teams that, like I said, man, when it comes to Jackson Dart, a guy that's just not consistent enough for me. You know what I mean? It's honestly a real problem. And this is a Arkansas team who puts up a lot of points and can put up a lot of points. I I really like their quarterback. What's his name? Taylon Green, a guy who plays pretty good football. Still makes mistakes, still inexperienced, but is a really good guy. Can also run the ball like crazy. And I think it's a battle of quarterbacks. You know what I mean? It's at Arkansas. I think it's gonna be a battle of quarterbacks. I like Taylon Green more as a quarterback than Jackson Dart. Also, Arkansas can run the ball with their running back, so they can't have a balanced rushing attack. And because of that, I'm gonna have Arkansas winning this game. So then automatically they cover.
So I think the line has changed to 6.5, I think.
Okay, yeah, I did these right when I woke up this morning, so they probably did change.
Uh at least that's what PFF is saying. So anyway, so let me tell you something here. This is gonna be one of those games that it's gonna be wild. Okay. Um, can Arkansas, can their defense, due to Ole Miss, which is a very similar offense to Tennessee, can they do the same thing, which is force Ole Miss into um, a process of decision making when I'm throwing the ball? Because that is not the Jackson Dart offense. They like to run it and then play action, immediately throw. And if Arkansas gets them thinking, that's how Arkansas can win this game. The issue with this game for Arkansas is I think the Ole Miss defense is a little bit underrated. I think the Ole Miss defense can get out there and slow you down a
Hmm.
little bit. Um, I think Ole Miss's defense has shown you against teams like South Carolina, even against LSU, now recently against Oklahoma, that they can get out there and they can play. Now, Arkansas, you know, just scored 58. I mean, I thought they were going to have like 70 points in their game against Mississippi State, but Mississippi State's defense is like FCS level.
Right.
So, this is a really tough game for me to pick. I'm going to go ahead and pick Ole Miss to win the game. Uh, but I am going to pick Arkansas to cover because I think Ole Miss will win this game by 3 points. I just think the combination of the Ole Miss defense with the Ole Miss offense being able to score, just have more points, end up with more points at the end of the game than Arkansas is probably how this game is going to go turn out. But I think Arkansas keeps this game very close.
I like that. Yeah, I'm with you there. Next one we have is Louisville at Clemson. Clemson favored by 8.5 points. As we know, Clemson is on an absolute roll right now. They are coming off of a couple really good wins against some teams. Now, they haven't really been tested this year. The one time they were tested, they obviously got just demolished by Georgia. So you're coming into here probably your second hardest game of the season, I would say. You got Pitt as well. So if Pitt plays, really well and they keep doing their thing, that's probably going to be your hardest one. South Carolina's scary as well, of course, later on. But right now you got Louisville. Louisville's a feisty team, man. They're one of those teams they also can put up points. You know what I mean? When you have Braun back there as your head coach, he loves to get creative. They're very creative with their play style. They shift their play style for each game. They're very interesting on offense to watch. Defensively, they've let up a lot of points. You know what I mean? So it is something to kind of watch in this game, and Clemson has been putting up a lot of points against these teams. But like I said, they really haven't been tested. So this is going to tell us a lot about this Clemson team. The thing is can Louisville keep up with Clemson's offense? I don't really know, man. That's one thing I'm a little worried about. You got Maffa, you got Klubnik, two really good players back there. Clemson favored by 8.5 points. I'm gonna go on Clemson to cover here. I think Clemson will cover. I think they'll win by about 10. I think this will be a good game for them. I think it'll be a statement game for them, but it would not surprise me if Louisville even goes in there and wins. You know what I mean? And shocks a lot of people. But Clemson, too many playmakers out there on offense. On defense, love their linebackers. Love their front seven. They got some really good guys out there. But like I said, they just haven't really been tested. You know what I mean? And I think this Louisville offense is going to be a big test for them and see how they perform.
Beautiful pick. Beautiful pick. I'm gonna go Clemson to cover the 8.5 as well. I just think sorry. I just think playing at home is the advantage for Clemson in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And Louisville's offense is pretty good. I just think that Clemson is gonna have more explosive plays, and I think Clemson's playing at home. I don't think the Louisville offense is going to stay on the field long enough. I think that's the key to the game for Louisville. Can they win the time of possession? Can they keep Clemson off the field?
Yep.
I don't see them being able to do that because I do think that the Clemson defense is going to have a great game. So I'm going to go Clemson with a victory by more than 9 points.
There you go. I like that. Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Look at that. 3 in a row. We're on the same page. So we love to see it, baby. Next one we have is Vanderbilt at Auburn. Auburn's favored by 5.5 points. Very interesting game here. I wanted to throw this on because this is going to tell us a lot about this Vanderbilt team. This Auburn team, as I stated before, they are a good football team. This Auburn team is not a team to mess around with. Their biggest problem is turnovers. They find ways to throw picks, fumbled the ball. It's unbelievable. Even in their win against Kentucky, they still threw an interception. They're lucky that Kentucky's offense had some turnovers themselves, and Auburn ended up winning the turnover battle 1-2. But Auburn has been winning in a lot of these games. Oklahoma, they were winning. Missouri, they were winning. They were a hard-fought game with California and Auburn. But the amount of interceptions that they throw, they just fall apart, especially in the second half. Really weird team. I like Vanderbilt a lot. I don't think Vanderbilt is a team that that has a lot of turnovers. The thing is did Texas destroy them? You know what I mean? That's really the big question here, is how bad did Texas hurt Vanderbilt? I think they're still going to have a fight in them. They're at Auburn, so that's a big advantage for Auburn, but Auburn fans are pissed, man. I don't know about Vanderbilt. Listen, my head is telling me to pick Auburn here, because Auburn has more talent, but this Vanderbilt team, man, they force some turnovers really good up front. Could definitely get to Peyton Thorne back there and force him to be a little uncomfortable in the pocket. He has some really bad games. I'm going to go Vanderbilt here to cover. I don't know about winning, but I'm going to have them covering for this game.
I think that's a beautiful pick. Kentucky.
Yeah, you're good.
What were you doing, Kentucky?
Mm-hmm.
Because you let Auburn run for 328 yards on you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking, Florida had a great game against you.
Yep.
So, that's what makes this game very, very tough, because Auburn, like you said, is a very solid and very talented team. I think they got momentum. I think it's going to be very difficult for Vanderbilt to stop this Auburn rushing attack. So I'm going to pick Auburn to win. I'm going to pick Auburn to cover in the game at 5.5. I could see this game being like a 34-28 type of game.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the Tigers.
That, like I said, that's probably the better pick, man. I need Vandy to keep going, baby. We need Vanderbilt to keep going. I like that pick. Next one we have is Texas A&M, favored by 3.5 only, 3.5 against South Carolina at South Carolina. I'll let you pick this one first, DJ.
Oh, brother. So, let me tell you something. South Carolina, I believe, had a bye week.
Yes.
To put everything they have in this game. They're another team, another program that every 5 minutes they want to fire the coach. We'll fire him, not fire him. I'm going to go Texas A&M in this game because I just think that, it's a 4-point spread, right? 3.5.
3.5, yeah.
Give me the Aggies. I think South Carolina. For South Carolina to have one of those wild, crazy type of close games, the opposing team has to have some sort of imperfection that South Carolina somehow exploits. This Texas A&M team has been really, really good at covering up their mistakes. I think they're a very, very solid team on the line of scrimmage. I think that completely negates what South Carolina wants to do. I think Texas A&M will force South Carolina into a lot of 3rd and longs, and I just don't see South Carolina stopping that A&M rushing attack. Give me the Aggies. I'm gonna say the Aggies are probably gonna win this one in an impressive fashion here. So give me the Aggies to roll.
I like that. The one thing I agree with you. The one thing that scares me about the South Carolina team, I don't know. They've done a good job of containing mobile quarterbacks this year. South Carolina has, and but then there's other games where then the quarterback goes crazy. So because what I'm thinking about is Marcel Reed. You know what I mean? They're going to use Marcel Reed in this game plan 100%. And that's what I'm worried about is what South Carolina team is going to show up. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about Texas A&M throwing the ball on me if I'm South Carolina at all because, I mean, you look at some of these other games, like I don't know, man. It just really comes down to if you could stop the run at South Carolina, but it's a day game, I believe. No, it's a night game. A night game in Williams-Brice. I don't think it's going to be an impressive win, but I have Texas A&M covering. I think they could probably win by 4. But yeah, I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a close one. We'll see. We'll see if Sellers can come in and ball out. They're coming off of a bye week of a really impressive win against Oklahoma. We'll see what happens there.
Love it.
Next one we have is Wisconsin at Iowa. Iowa favored by 2.5. This game's going to be very, very interesting. Dude, I don't know what it is. I really like this Wisconsin football team, man. Obviously just had a pretty hard loss there, but I really like this Wisconsin football team. Them being only, Iowa only being favored by 2.5 shows that people have respect for Wisconsin. Like I said, they're very physical up front, and that really surprised me in that Penn State game. And just really held their own, especially on the defensive line, which I really haven't seen much of Wisconsin this year, but that is something that really impressed me, going toe-to-toe with those guys. You look at Iowa. Iowa's a team, who's had up and downs throughout the season, has looked really good at some points, but then, the loss against Michigan State, the loss against Ohio State where they dominated, but they played a really good game against Washington. So, man, I really want Wisconsin to come in here and get this win. But Iowa right now, they're on a roll. Wisconsin a little beat up from the Penn State game, some injuries, some guys out. I'll have Iowa win this game, but it's not going to be by a lot. It barely a win for Iowa here.
Beautiful pick. Beautiful pick. Iowa, if this was at Wisconsin, Iowa has not really been that great on the road, but for some reason they're jacked up, just like my shirt, at home. And I am gonna go Iowa to cover at home in a hard fought battle. I think Wisconsin will have more success running the football in this game against Iowa than Penn State, but I think Iowa will win the game. Field position and turnovers. It's going to determine this game, but I'm going to go Iowa.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Next one we have here is going to be Indiana favored by 7.5 at Michigan State. The thing that I'm worried most about this game is the fact that Indiana's quarterback, Curtis Rourke, a guy who, in my opinion, deserves way more praise than what he's getting, really helping move this Indiana offense down the field, playing really, really good quality football this year with not a lot of interceptions. He obviously was out last week for Indiana, and they still got a really good win against Washington. By the way, last week, I mean this, yesterday. A really good game against Washington, man, without him in the backfield. They're saying that he might be back for this one. I'm not saying that they need him back for this, but this game scares me if they have their backup in. Can this backup continue 2 weeks in a row, 2 quality wins? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm a little worried about. And his name's Taven Jackson. Had a good game, but definitely was making mistakes. They made it super easy for him. And look, you got a Michigan State team it's a hard-nosed team. They just lost against Michigan. They're pissed off. They have actually a really hard schedule coming up. Michigan State does. So they want to get this win. It's prime time for them at Michigan State and Lansing. Favored by 2 or by 7.5 though for Indiana. Indiana's just a good football team. They haven't really, but like I said, just that guy being out at quarterback really hurts me. They're going to release it later this week, obviously, if he's going to play or not, from what I've heard. But it's a day by day thing right now. I'm gonna make this pick by with like the, him not playing in mind and the backup playing for Indiana. So I'm going to have Michigan State covering. I don't think they win, but I think it's going to be one of those hard-fought games with the backup in for Indiana. I just don't know if I can keep trusting this backup to get wins every week.
Another beautiful pick, my friend.
Hey, look at us, man.
I know. I am gonna go exactly with what you said. I think Indiana somehow, in a miracle, is able to win this game. Um, the issue that I have with the game is exactly your point. Um, Going on the road with a topsy-turvy, willy-nilly quarterback situation. But Michigan State's defense has been a little bit shaky. And so I think from a covering standpoint, I think uh uh or winning the game outright standpoint, I think Indiana will end up with more points at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Michigan State will keep this game very close by nature of ball control, limiting Indiana's opportunities, and then Indiana not being able to capitalize on on many opportunities with the backup. So
Yeah,
Michigan State.
I like that. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm with you there. Next one we have is North Carolina at FSU. I just want to do this one for fun because I hate FSU. North Carolina favored by 1.5. Really close here, actually. Listen, North Carolina, a team that obviously hasn't had the best year. Lost to Duke, lost to Pitt, lost against Georgia Tech, won against Virginia coming into this game. Got destroyed by James Madison. James Madison could have put up 100 points on them at home. That game was insane. FSU, not good against the run this year. They've struggled a lot with that. And you're going against a guy that gets 100 yards a game named Amarian Hampton, who's an absolute monster in the backfield for North Carolina. Something's telling me that Florida State's going to win this game. I don't know what it is. Like I said, I just gave you a stat that shows that, you have one of the best running backs in the country for North Carolina, and that guy does not have an offensive line to run by or anything. It's like they're focused completely on the run game when you play North Carolina. But something about Florida State in this game, man, it's really weird to me. I'm gonna go. I'll go Florida State to win this game. I think they're gonna have a nice little game here, but it would not be. I would I just at this point it's like there's no way they just keep going with one win, right?
Oh man,
There's no way.
This is gonna be one of those wild, crazy games because North Carolina. Let me tell you, uh, they're 4-4. Somehow they're 4-4, but they've looked in the last four games just as bad as FSU has. I mean, they've been fortunate to play teams like Charlotte and I think they played like Eastern Michigan or something like that early in the year. So that's two of their four wins. They went to Virginia and played a really good game. But this Florida State team, I think, is marginally better with Glenn at quarterback. They did play the true freshman.
Yeah,
I can't pronounce his name.
it's weird. It's yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But he had a decent game. It wasn't like it was terrible. And so with that in mind, I can see why this is a close game with North Carolina favored by 2 points. But I'm gonna go with this is a tough one, but I'm gonna go North Carolina to end up somehow miraculously with more points and a very depressing Florida State performance. Tar Heels field goal as time expires.
There you go. I love that.
See, I gotta make a comeback.
I love that. I respect that. I'll just start, choosing first. Next one we have Oregon at Michigan. Huge game. Oregon, dude, look at this line. Oregon favored by 3 points.
Wow.
Oregon favored by 3 points in this game. At least as of this morning. It's at Michigan in Ann Arbor. I don't know what time the game will be. Let's see, 3:30. So prime time in Ann Arbor. This just screams trap game. But at the same time, Oregon has not really been they have not let teams run the ball on them since Boise State, but that's also Ashton Jeanty, you know what I mean? But every other team has really struggled. We're talking getting like 50 yards on the ground. Like they have been amazing stopping the run. That's all Michigan is. Michigan cannot pass the ball at all. You know what I mean? So if you're Oregon, you're really liking this matchup, but only favored by 3, man. It's like, does Vegas know something we don't? I don't like that line at all. I could see Oregon somehow messing this up, but that means that their offense would just have to sputter. And Michigan's defense has been playing really good this year. Michigan's defense, we talked about earlier when we were reviewing the Michigan State game, has not let a team score a lot of points on them at all. The most points a team has scored on them was Texas with 31 points. Other than that, it's all been a lot lower than that. Probably averaging around 24 points for letting up points wise. So let's say Oregon does score 20 points. Can Michigan score 20 points to win it? I don't think so. So I'm going to go Oregon here for winning this game. But, I think this is a weird game, but I think just the stats tell me Oregon's going to get a win.
Yeah, I think this is Oregon all the way here. It looks like, so I'm checking the line just to see this 3. So they're saying it's 14.
Oh.
It's up to 16 now.
Whoa, that's this morning. I looked at FanDuel. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think people have heard you and have just said, you know what? Let me bet the house while it's -3 here.
That's crazy. Well, yeah, screw me, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, this one just came out 19 minutes ago. Dang it. All right, let's see.
What's that? What's the spread that you're seeing?
I just looked this up right away, and this is a Michigan report, and they're saying that. Okay, let's see. Week 10. 1 second. Yeah, 15. That's crazy.
But it's crazy because when you go to Vegas Insider, it's still at -3 Oregon. So I don't really know what the heck is happening.
Do you want? What do you want to go off of 3? Or?
So I'm gonna go
15 feels
Oregon.
More fair, but
yeah, 15 seems like okay. Now I have to actually think about -3. I'm going Oregon. I'm betting the house on Oregon here if it's -3.
Mm-hmm.
-15, I have to think a little bit more about it, but I've got to say how I could see this game going 80% of the time is Oregon jumps out 14-0,
mm-hmm.
and then Michigan's playbook is just completely thrown out, and the whole balanced attack situation is, well, I guess we got to go shotgun 5 wide to see if we can come back in the game, and then that's how the game just sort of gets out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I got Oregon in this game covering, whether it's 3, whether it's 15. Give me the Ducks.
Love that. Respect it. There you go. So, yeah, those are going to be our picks for Week 10 of college football, man. Very excited to see what goes on there. Not like a super packed weekend, but definitely one of those weekends that, there's going to be a lot of upsets, a lot of close games that people are going to go, okay, maybe we should, the conference, winner projections might be a little off a little bit. So we'll see what happens there. The last segment we want to do before we let you guys go is the Heisman race. I was talking with EJ about this. We're going to do our top 5. I have an honorable mention as well that I want to kind of talk about. This is some good conversation. I'm very excited for this. So let's dive into this. EJ, you want to start with your honorable mention or your 5th? Who you have?
Will do. So my honorable mentions. So I'm going to give you my top 3, like people that I think are going to go to Vegas, because I think they invite 3.
Yeah, it's 3, I believe.
Okay, so I'll give you my top three as to who I would invite today. Then I'm gonna give you my two uh uh honorable mentions. So my first honorable mention is my man Shador Sanders from Colorado. I think um given their schedule and given the fact that I think he's a really elite passer, I think he will have good enough stats, and I think Colorado will make the Big 12 championship game to have it sort of forced to where the best quarterback on this team that's potentially a playoff contender will be up there. So I'm gonna go Shador Sanders. And then I've got my boy Ashton Jeanty from Boise State.
Yes,
Your
sir.
man,
Yeah.
blue and orange. This guy is incredible. I just don't think you can ignore what he's doing in college football today. With his yards per carry average and whole situation. So those are my two honorable mentions.
Love that. Love that. Um, yeah, no, I'm with you. I have Shador as well. From our honorable mentions, like you said, single-handedly almost kind of doing everything at Colorado. You know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, you got Travis Hunter, and you got some other. There's some really good receivers there, and a lot of some blue chips as well. That are playing well there on the outside, but man, just single-handedly though, really not an offensive line. You know what I'm saying? And he's just kind of making something out of nothing. And Colorado's a good football team. I saw them destroy UCF in person, and then that was really fun to see that the athletes they have out there. But yeah, I think this is the year for Colorado. They're obviously losing a lot of guys, and after this year, I think it's a big drop off. You know what I mean? So I expect. I expect Colorado to go crazy, mainly because I think this might be their last shot for a while at least, because of the talent that will be leaving. But yeah, so I have them. I have him there as well. I have another honorable mention that I want to talk about, Curtis Rourke with Indiana.
Oh,
I really like him. I really like him. You look at he's like top in the country for turnovers. Like not of course not as many turnovers. Top in the country for his completion percentage at 75%. 2,000 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Like this is something that. This is a good stat line that people are kind of letting pass. Big body guy, 6'5", 223. Really, really like him as a player. I probably put Shador over Curtis for sure. But I just want to throw Curtis Rourke in there because I think I do. Maybe I'm just biased. I love this Indiana team. I love watching them play. They're such a fun offense to watch. With not a lot of playmakers all over that field, he's playing really, really well. So big shout out to Curtis. Just kind of want to give him some flowers. Those will be my two honorable mentions. And then I have number 5. So did you do you didn't do number 5 yet, right?
uh, so my number 5 is Shador Sanders,
It is Shador. Okay,
and then my number 4 will be Gene T.
gotcha.
From Boise. Yep.
Okay, so number 5 for me is Caleb Johnson, the running back at Iowa. This dude's been going off, dude. I mean, over like 1,100 yards rushing, 16 touchdowns, just playing really, really good football right now. And also receiving. He's a good back out of the backfield for them, and a huge guy, 6 foot, 225, averages 8 yards a carry. Just a guy that, because of G&T, a lot of people are kind of overlooking him, but he's really the offense for that Iowa team. I know offense and Iowa don't go together, but he's kind of making that happen. So, look at his games. He hasn't had a game that was under 86 yards rushing. That was his lowest amount, and he still averaged 6 yards a carry in that game, and that was against Ohio State. So I love watching him play. Really, really hard runner, really quick, really fun guy, in Caleb Johnson. So that's my number 5. And then my number 4 is Dylan Gabriel with Oregon. I really, really like him. Obviously, he's been playing really well. 70% completion percentage. That was in that game. 76% completion percentage overall this year, with 2,300 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. A guy that just can spin the ball Obviously did that at UCF. Where was he? Where was he before? Was he always at UCF, or was he at a team before UCF? No, he was at
Uh,
Oklahoma.
he's
It
at
was
Oklahoma. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it was UCF, Oklahoma, and Oregon. I mean, just found his place. It's his offensive style. Loves to just throw dots down the field. I mean, look at his games too and his passing yards. I mean, there's not a game that was like under 250 passing yards. He's throwing the rock down the field. Turnovers is something, but when you're throwing the ball, 40 times a game, you know what I mean? You're going to throw interceptions. So just a really fun offense to watch. I think Dylan Gabriel deserves that number 4 spot for me. So
Love it.
top 3 now for both of us. I know you kind of dove into this a little bit, but we'll see what we can do. I'll just let you go through your whole top 3, and then I'll go.
All right, I'll be kind of quick. So I'm
You're
gonna
good.
go. My number 3 is gonna be Dylan Gabriel, from Oregon. I think when you look at the field and you just look at, the fact that Oregon is undefeated, number one. You look at, you know, their remaining schedule here, rounding out the year. Um, Dylan Gabriel has a 95.8. Well, that was his last game. But his QBR for the season is pretty exceptional. Um, I just see him being able to have more opportunities to have some Heisman moments here, wrapping up the season with looking at their schedule. It's not really that difficult.
Mm-mm.
So I'm gonna go Gabriel number 3. I'm gonna go my boy Travis Hunter. It sounds
Hey.
like he should be a rapper. Uh, like I love his name, Travis Hunter.
Yeah, it's
Man,
dope.
uh, he's just an incredible player. Um, I think the injuries, him not being able to play the whole season, that is gonna cause him to not be number 1, I think. Um, but this guy is incredible, receiving and passes defended. Um, just an incredible stamina to be able to play an entire game going both ways.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty frightening, that or scary that he's able to do that. So he's my number 2. And then my number 1 has got to be Cam Ward right now at Miami. I know Cam Ward um, has or Miami as a team has kind of not looked great. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they can't really get too excited with looking at their schedule. But Cam Ward right now, a 174 overall rating, 9.8 yards per pass, not elite would be over 10 yards
Hmm.
a pass attempt. So I think he's got to get there. 68% completion percentage is great. I think you got to get to 70% to really lock down the Heisman. So we'll see. But the reason I think Ward is up there at number 1 is because number 1, he's already got the hype. Number 2, they're undefeated. Number 3, uh, it's Cam Ward versus when you look at Cam Ward versus Gabriel, they're both undefeated, but Gabriel's team is more rounded right now. And it's Cam Ward to just snap the ball to Cam Ward and he's got to do something. And I think that eventually is going to win him the Heisman. Now, the thing that I don't really know is that typically the Heisman is awarded like prior to the national championship, right?
Hmm.
Because it's different this year because now you got the playoff. So I'm kind of like, okay,
Oh
so are they
yeah.
going to give the Heisman out during the playoffs? Because those playoff games for Miami are really going to determine if Cam Ward's going to get the Heisman or not, to
Yeah.
me.
Right, because he's playing an
So
actual team.
yeah, so let's actually look that up.
Yeah, Heisman date.
Yeah, award ceremony because um, so it's December 14th, 2024.
So December
Uh,
14th.
yeah,
Okay,
which
so college football playoff starts December 20th.
oh, okay. So they're gonna hand out the Heisman before the playoffs.
Yep.
Okay, so I think that favors Ward because I think if they keep playing the way they're playing, that some of these playoff teams are gonna get them.
Hmm.
But if they end up playing Clemson in the ACC championship game, that's either you win the Heisman and the ACC, or you lose both in one
Yeah.
game. It's a high stakes game for
Yep.
Ward.
No, yeah, I'm with you. Cam Ward's my number 3 pick, so I can dive into that conversation with you.
Nice.
Yeah, he's look, man. I mean, he hasn't played a single team this year. When you look at defenses, you know what I'm saying. Like I need to see him against a really good team, like what you were just saying. But still, 2,700 passing yards and 24 touchdowns on just 5 interceptions. You know, I mean, because look, here's the thing: when Cam Ward came out of Washington State, right? The big worry I had with Cam Ward is in big games against good defenses, he threw so many interceptions because he felt like he needed to do everything himself at Washington State. That was his big thing that was hurting him at Wazoo. Now, you know, he hasn't really had a big prime time game except for Cal, I guess. But even then, Cal's Cal. You know, they're a feisty little team, but they also have like 4 losses, right? So I'm talking about I want to see him at like a prime time game against Clemson, right? Or
Right.
something crazy like that. We haven't seen that from Cam Ward. So I don't know how the interceptions will get to him. You know, that was his biggest thing last year is in big games. He threw a lot of picks and had a lot of turnovers. So look, we'll see what he does going forward, but you have to acknowledge the fact that he has 2,700 passing yards and just
Right.
these games, man, which is unbelievable with the 68% completion percentage and you know just running the ball really good and like a QBR of 91. You know, he's playing really good football. So you have to acknowledge that, which is why he's third for me. Number 2 is see, this is where it gets tough, man, because like how do you define the Heisman race, right? Like, it's tough because obviously my top 2 are Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty, and do you give it to the best all-around player in college football or the best at their position? Because if you're looking at Travis Hunter, this is a guy who is the best player in college football. He is so versatile. This dude, I mean, look at his stats for the Colorado this year. It's unbelievable. I mean, you know, receiving this year, he has 750 receiving yards, 12 yards a touch, 8 touchdowns with a long of 46, right? And he has 60 receptions. Then you go to his defense and how he's played on defense, and this dude has 7 pass deflections, you know, 2 interceptions. Just is playing amazing. I mean, I watched this guy in person against UCF make one of the craziest plays on defense, man. He was bailing right away, stopped himself, broke down, came downhill at the receiver, and had a pass breakup. It was
Mm.
beautiful. Beautiful job. He is so fast, such a big playmaker. But then you got Ashton Jeanty. This guy is one of the, at least in my lifetime, is the best running back I've ever seen play the sport. You know what I'm saying? I know, of course, you know, you got absolute legends like, you know, Emmitt Smith and you know, Ricky Williams. You know, that's different. But at least that I've seen on TV, this guy is unbelievable, man. I mean, just you know, over 1,300 yards already this year, which is more than he had last year on less carries, averaging almost 9 yards a carry, 18 touchdowns. Just unbelievable, man. You know, they did use him last year more out of the backfield as a receiver. But I mean, this you can't make this stuff up. Some of these stats, bro. I mean, you know, 259 rushing yards, 217 rushing yards, 186 rushing yards, and it just like this guy's unbelievable. Not a single fumble, by the way. Not a single fumble by him this
Wow.
year. At least from I believe so. Let me see. Yeah, no fumble this year. I mean, like you can't make that up, you know? Which by the way, also ran for 200 yards on an Oregon defense. They lost that game, but barely by 3 points. 200 yards against an Oregon defense that is decent against the run and has gotten better against the run. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy what he's been able to do. So my thing is do you give it to G&T or do you give it to Hunter? And it's a very hard decision because you're never going to see another guy like Hunter that plays both sides like this, at least in our lifetime. You're not, and I don't know if we'll ever see a guy like G&T again that's putting up over 200 yards on the ground like in 3-4 games this year. I have to give it to Hunter because I feel like the best overall player is him. This is one of the best Heisman races we've had in a long time. And it's a really fun one. So it probably goes number 2, Ashton, and then number 1, Travis Hunter for me. But it's hard.
Love it. Love it. And then when you look at Hunter, like 86 as a receiver on PFF, 88 in coverage, it's like, how do you do that? And then GT, what is his yards per carry?
It's like 9.
9 yards. It's basically like when you're averaging a first down a carry. I just really hope that they give GT the credit, given that he's not power 4, you know. I think Boise, I hope they're making a move to try to get to power 4, but
I think they're going back. I think because the Pac-12 is coming back, and I think they might have gone to the new Pac-12.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be wonderful if they
think.
could do that. Because that would be the only I could see people. Well, he didn't play in the Power 4, you know, and but to your
Points
point,
at an Oregon game, man.
the guy, exactly, the guy is incredible. So
yeah,
wonderful.
It's like you said, it's really going to come down to the records of these teams. You know what I'm saying? Like Colorado can make the playoff, Boise State can make the playoff. And I think whoever makes the playoff is probably, or whoever has the best record to end it off will probably win Heisman out of those two. But then you got guys like Cam Ward. If Cam Ward, they're going to make the playoff, obviously, even if they lose against Clemson in the ACC championship. And so if Cam Ward goes off, he'll win it too. So Dylan Gabriel's another guy. So like you said, man, no telling what's going to happen. But you have at least 4 guys that are 100%. It's a toss-up between 4 guys, which is insane. But I don't know the last time I was able to even say that, crazy stuff. But Heisman's weird. They didn't give it to Trask in 2020. They gave it to Mac Jones, even though Trask had better stats. It's a whole other story. But, whatever. So you never know what the Heisman, people are going to do there. But yeah, that's kind of what we have. So you guys let us know your Heisman picks. Who you guys think should win it and who you think is leading the race right now. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for our episode today. EJ, anything else you wanted to touch on, man?
Well, I just had 2 really quick final thoughts. So, first is on the upcoming schedule for Florida. It is a reverse playoff schedule. What do I mean by that? If you look at these next 4 games, you are not going to have 4 tougher games when you make the college football playoff than what Florida's about to play in these next 4 games, except it's in the reverse order of what typically it should be. Meaning, in the playoffs, you're probably going Ole Miss, LSU, Texas, Georgia in the final. We're going to go Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. So it's going to be a de-escalating in terms of the rankings. LSU might fall a little bit since they did lose that game to A&M. So it's an incredible run. I don't think anybody's going to see a schedule like this. Let's see how many games that we can win in these next 4. It'll be interesting to see. The other interesting stat, or interesting, weird stat from some research is, I know it's an election year and not going to get political, but the Gators typically have a good team on election years, dating all the way back to 1984, that was the team that they just celebrated in the Kentucky game. Went 9-1. The New York Times said that they were national champions, but then they were on some sort of NCAA sanction
with a coach.
so they couldn't. Right. So that was big. 1988, they went 7-4. It wasn't a great year, but when you look at 1988, they went and Emmitt Smith was on the team. He got hurt. We didn't do anything for the rest of the year. They went and played Auburn and lost 16-0. That was the last time Florida played a football game where they did not score a single point. Was October 29th, 1988. That is a crazy stat. 436 consecutive games scoring at least 1 point, including the game that I went to in Vegas against Oregon State, where we were down 30-0 with like 10 seconds left, and Napier kicks a field goal to keep the streak alive. So there you go. But let me just run through this. 1992, SEC East champs went to the SEC championship game against Alabama, didn't win it. That was, I think, Clinton's year that was elected. 96, Clinton reelected. National champions in 96. 2000, George Bush is elected. We are SEC champions in 2000. 2004, Bush gets he wins re-election. That was Ron Zook's last year. It wasn't a great year, 7-5, but we beat one of the top 3 ranked teams in the country in the year in Florida State. So that pretty much made us, by default, have a good year.
Yeah.
2008, national champions in 2008. 2012, Will Muschamp goes 11-1 in 2012. 2016, Donald Trump was elected to his first term. We actually won the SEC East in 2016.
Yeah, that was a crazy year.
It was a crazy year. 2020, the last election, Biden won. We won the SEC East in 2020. So 95-33 overall record in the last since 1984. And 7 titles of some form or fashion, including 2 national championships on presidential election year. So I don't know what that means. I just think it means we're going to do something. This year, we're going to either beat Georgia or Texas. That's how this whole election year thing has played out.
I'll be happy.
And there you go.
Love that. That's a fun fact, dude. I love that, man. Yeah, no, dude, it's a gauntlet. It's an absolute gauntlet, and I think it starts with being competitive. I think we talked about this earlier. If we get curb stomped by Georgia, season's over. Our boys are gonna fall apart. You know what I mean? We have to make this competitive. Good news is we both think it's gonna be competitive, and we already stated exactly why. But to just kind of recap it, stop the run, have explosive plays, limit turnovers on your end. And, we'll see what kind of team Billy Napier brings out. That's going to be the big thing. So we will see what happens. Really excited for this game. We will see you guys next Sunday, though, man. Going to be amazing. Hopefully we're happy. Hopefully we're really happy. That'd be amazing, baby. It'd be a really fun podcast. But, we love you guys, man. You guys have a great rest of your week. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.